is 1004.7 FM. My name is Daniel Rothman, and if you're hearing this, you're still alive. That matters more than you might think right now. It's approximately 11:43 in the morning, Tuesday, December 23rd. The temperature outside the studio is 38 degrees Fahrenheit, overcast, light wind from the northwest. Under normal circumstances, I'd be reading you traffic reports, weather updates, maybe some last-minute holiday shopping tips, but these aren't normal circumstances anymore. I want to be clear about something before we go any further. I'm not reading from a script. There is no script. What you're going to hear is what's happening as it happens from this station on the east side of the city. I have my assistant Emily monitoring phones, emergency channels, whatever communications are still functioning. And I'm going to tell you everything we know, everything we're hearing, without filter, without panic, because panic helps no one. So, let's start with what we know for certain. Approximately 2 hours ago, emergency services began receiving calls from the Route 74 corridor, specifically the stretch between mile marker 88 and mile marker 92. Initial reports described a massive traffic incident, multiple vehicle collisions, people behaving erratically, what first responders initially classified as possible chemical exposure or mass hysteria. The Highway Patrol dispatched units, paramedics were en route, standard protocol for a multi-vehicle accident, except the crews that arrived first stopped transmitting within minutes. The last coherent radio traffic we intercepted, and Emily has been monitoring the emergency band since this started, the last clear transmission was an officer requesting immediate backup and describing, quote, people attacking each other, biting, not responding to commands, end quote. That was at 9:57 this morning. Since then, the incident has spread. We're getting fragmented reports from areas adjacent to the highway, the Brookshire District, parts of Millerton, sections of the industrial zone near the old shipping yards. Emily just handed me a note. She's been on the phone with someone claiming to be sheltering inside a warehouse on Prentice Avenue. That's roughly 4 miles from the original incident site on Route 74. 4 miles in 2 hours. The authorities, what's left of coordinated authority right now, issued a shelter-in-place advisory for anyone within a 10-mile radius of the Route 74 corridor approximately 40 minutes ago. Not an evacuation order, not yet. A shelter in place. Stay inside, lock your doors, avoid contact with anyone displaying unusual behavior. I need you to understand what unusual behavior means in this context, because the terminology matters and clarity matters. We're hearing descriptions of people who appear disoriented, aggressive, unresponsive to verbal commands or physical barriers. There are reports of individuals attacking others without provocation. Biting. That word keeps appearing in the reports. Emily is collecting. Biting. The official statement from the County Emergency Management Office, released 18 minutes ago, attributes the situation to possible toxic exposure from an industrial accident. They're investigating a waste disposal facility near the Route 74 junction. That facility, from what we've been able to piece together, services the cargo processing center at the old Whitmore shipping yard. Now, here's where things become less clear and more troubling. The Whitmore yard hasn't been fully operational in over a decade. It handles overflow cargo, occasional freight transfers, things that don't fit into the main port facilities downtown. Mostly it's a graveyard for containers waiting to be processed, sold, scrapped, or destroyed. 2 days ago, according to a contact Emily reached at the Municipal Records Office, the yard received an unregistered container. No proper manifest, no clear origin documentation, flagged for immediate disposal. That container was transferred to the Glendale Rural Dump Station yesterday afternoon. Glendale is less than 2 miles from the Route 74 corridor. The dump operates a continuous burn pit for non-recyclable waste. Standard procedure. They incinerate refuse, chemical containers, expired materials that can't be safely processed elsewhere. Sometime late last night or early this morning, workers at Glendale reportedly threw the contents of that unregistered container into the burn pit. We don't know exactly what was inside. Emily spoke with someone who claims to have seen the inventory sheet before it was logged. Damaged boxes, expired pharmaceutical products, chemical disposal packs, laboratory waste with faded labels. The kind of mixed hazardous material that should never be burned together but often is because oversight is minimal and nobody asks questions until something goes wrong. Something went wrong. According to the same source, the fire didn't burn normally. It produced thick smoke, darker and heavier than typical burn pit emissions. The wind was blowing northwest, directly toward Route 74, directly toward the morning rush hour traffic that morning was unusually heavy. Holiday travelers heading out of the city early, commercial trucks making last deliveries before Christmas, commuters trying to beat the weather forecast calling for snow later in the week, A perfect storm of congestion. Cars packed bumper to bumper for miles. And then the smoke arrived. Think about it. Hundreds of people sitting in their vehicles, windows cracked for air circulation, ventilation systems pulling in outside atmosphere. A chemical cloud drifting across the highway, invisible against the gray morning sky, carrying whatever compounds were released when that mixture ignited. The first 911 calls came in at 9:38. Drivers reporting feeling dizzy, disoriented. Several callers mentioned seeing other motorists stumbling out of their cars, vomiting, collapsing. Within minutes, those calls escalated. Reports of fights breaking out, people screaming, attacking anyone nearby. By 9:50, the highway was chaos. First responders arrived expecting a traffic accident with chemical exposure. What they found was something else entirely. People who had collapsed were getting back up. People who had been injured, seriously injured, were moving again. Moving with purpose. Attacking. I know how this sounds. I'm aware of what I'm describing. But I'm telling you what's being reported, what emergency personnel are transmitting, what witnesses are claiming they've seen. I'm not interpreting, I'm not speculating. I'm giving you the information as we receive it. Emily just passed me another note. The shelter-in-place advisory has been upgraded. The governor's office issued a statement 7 minutes ago declaring a state of emergency for the entire county. National Guard units are being mobilized. Roadblocks are being established along major routes leading out of the affected area. They're calling it a containment zone now. Containment. That word implies something specific. It implies that whatever is happening can be isolated, controlled, stopped from spreading beyond defined boundaries. I want to believe that's true. I want to believe the authorities have a plan, that trained personnel are responding appropriately, that this situation is being managed. But I'm looking at the map Emily has spread across the desk in front of me, marked with every reported incident we've logged in the past 2 hours, and the pattern is clear. This isn't contained. This is expanding. The initial reports came from the highway, then Brookshire, then Millerton. Now we're getting calls from areas 7-8 miles away from Road 74, a convenience store on Hartnell Road, an apartment complex near Jefferson Park, an elementary school, God help us, an elementary school on the north side where a teacher called saying people were trying to break through the security doors. Emily contacted them back. No answer. I'm going to be honest with you because there's no point in pretending otherwise. We don't know what we're dealing with. The official explanation is toxic exposure, chemical contamination, something that's causing violent psychotic behavior in those affected. That would make sense if we were seeing people recover, if medical intervention was helping, if the symptoms were consistent with known toxicology. But that's not what's being reported. People who go down don't stay down. People who are injured beyond any reasonable capacity to function keep moving, and everyone they attack, everyone who gets bitten or scratched or exposed to their blood, starts showing the same symptoms within minutes. Traditional chemical exposure doesn't work that way. Infection vectors don't propagate that rapidly. Whatever this is, it's acting like nothing we've seen before, or at least nothing I've seen before in 2 decades of monitoring emergency channels and disaster responses. Emily is on the phone now with someone from the state health department. She's trying to get information about hospitals, treatment protocols, whether there's any medical guidance for people who might have been exposed. I can hear her voice rising, frustrated. Nobody has answers. The hospitals are overwhelmed. The county medical center stopped accepting new patients 40 minutes ago. They're full. Not full like a busy Friday night. Full like turn away the ambulances, lock the doors, triage in the parking lot, full. And it's not even noon yet. Let me give you some practical information because that's what matters right now. If you're listening to this broadcast, if you can hear my voice, you need to make decisions about your safety. First, stay inside. I cannot stress this enough. Do not go outside unless absolutely necessary. Lock your doors, close your windows, seal any gaps that might allow air circulation from outside. If you were anywhere near Route 74 this morning, if you drove through that area, if you were in traffic between 9 and 10 o'clock, monitor yourself for symptoms. Dizziness, nausea, confusion, sudden aggression. If you start feeling any of those things, isolate yourself from others immediately. Second, avoid contact with anyone displaying unusual behavior. I know that sounds obvious, but I mean it literally. If you see someone acting disoriented, violent, unresponsive, do not approach them. Do not try to help them. Do not assume they're drunk or sick or having a medical emergency. Keep distance. Get behind a locked door. Call for help if phone lines are still functioning, but your priority is your own safety. Third, gather supplies, water, non-perishable food, first aid materials, anything you might need if you can't leave your home for an extended period. Fill bathtubs and containers with water now while the supply is still running. We don't know how long utilities will remain operational. Power grid. water treatment, all of that depends on people showing up to work. And right now, a lot of people are not showing up to work. Emily is signaling me. She's got someone on the line claiming to have first-hand information about what happened at the dump site. I'm going to take this. Hold on. All right, I just spoke with a man named Terrence who worked, I should say, at the Glendale facility. He's currently sheltering at a truck stop about 15 miles north of the city. He confirms that yesterday afternoon a container arrived from the Whitmore yard marked for immediate destruction. He said it wasn't properly logged, no hazard assessment, just a work order to burn the contents. According to Terrence, when they opened the container, they found it packed with damaged cardboard boxes, plastic containers, glass bottles, most of them broken or leaking. Labels were either missing or too faded to read. Standard protocol in that situation is to sort the material, separate out anything clearly hazardous, dispose of the rest. But it was late in the day, the crew wanted to finish and go home, so they just dumped everything into the pit and lit it. He said the fire burned wrong. His exact words, burned wrong. The flames were a strange color, greenish blue in places, and the smoke was thick, oily, hung low to the ground instead of rising. The smell was chemical, acrid, made everyone's eyes water. One of the crew members started coughing badly, had trouble breathing. They shut down the burn and evacuated the area, called it a night. This morning when Terrence arrived for his shift, the pit was still smoldering. The smoke had mostly cleared, blown off by the wind during the night, northwest wind. Toward the highway. He said he started feeling sick around 8:30, nauseous and dizzy. Other crew members reported the same symptoms. By 9 o'clock, 2 of them had collapsed. Terrence saw one of them, a guy named Phineas, get back up and attack another worker. Terrence ran. He got in his truck and drove north without stopping until he reached the truck stop where he called us from. He kept saying he should have checked the container properly, should have refused the work order, should have reported it. But how could he have known? How could anyone have known that burning expired medicine and chemical waste would produce something like this? Except someone should have known. Somewhere in the chain of custody for that container, someone should have flagged it as hazardous, required proper documentation, prevented it from ending up in a rural dump pit. The system failed. Multiple systems failed, and now we're dealing with the consequences. Emily has been tracking news from other areas. The major networks are starting to pick up the story. National coverage is describing it as an industrial accident with casualties. They're using terms like contamination event and public health crisis. They're not using words like outbreak or infection. Not yet. But the language will change. It always does when reality becomes impossible to ignore. The federal government has been notified. FEMA is supposedly coordinating with state authorities. The CDC is sending a team expected to arrive this evening if air traffic remains operational. I say if because there are reports of incidents at the regional airport. Nothing confirmed, but Emily heard chatter on the emergency channels about a disturbance in one of the terminals, security responding to aggressive individuals, flights being grounded. If the airport goes down, if it gets contaminated or overrun or whatever you want to call it, we lose one of the primary evacuation routes out of the city. The highways are already blocked or too dangerous to travel. Rail service stopped running an hour ago after reports of incidents at the central station. That leaves people with 2 options: shelter in place or flee on foot through areas that may already be compromised. Neither option is good. I'm watching the clock. It's 12:14 now, less than 3 hours since the first emergency calls. 3 hours and the entire character of this city has changed. I keep expecting to hear sirens, constant sirens like you'd expect during a major emergency. But there's periods of silence, long periods where the only sound is the wind against the building and the hum of our backup generator. That silence is wrong. A city of 500,000 people should never be that quiet in the middle of the day. Emily is monitoring social media, or what's left of it. Internet service is spotty, cell networks are overloaded, but there's still some communication getting through. People are posting videos. I haven't watched them myself, but Emily describes what she's seeing, and it matches the reports we're getting. Shaky footage of people attacking each other in parking lots, streets, inside buildings, crowds fleeing, bodies on the ground that shouldn't be moving but are. One video apparently shows a police officer trying to restrain someone who had been shot multiple times. Center mass the kind of wounds that should be immediately incapacitating. The person kept fighting, kept trying to bite the officer, didn't respond to pain or verbal commands. Eventually, the officer had to retreat, left the individual standing there in the middle of the street, bleeding, swaying, but upright. How do you fight something like that? How do you stop someone who doesn't feel pain, doesn't respond to injury, doesn't have any sense of self-preservation? Traditional crowd control methods, assume people will respond rationally to force, will retreat when faced with superior numbers or weaponry. But if the people you're trying to control aren't rational, if they're driven by something else entirely, then all the training and tactics become useless. The police scanner traffic has changed tone in the past hour. Early transmissions were professional, controlled, officers reporting incidents and requesting backup and standard procedure. Now there's fear in the voices, confusion, requests for lethal force authorization, calls for retreat, units going silent mid-transmission. Emily just handed me a printout of the latest official statement from the governor's office. I'll read it verbatim. Citizens of the affected counties are advised to remain indoors until further notice. A state of emergency has been declared. National Guard and federal emergency response teams are mobilizing. Avoid all contact with individuals displaying symptoms of contamination, including disorientation, aggression, or violent behavior. Law enforcement and medical personnel are working to contain the situation. Further updates will be provided as information becomes available. Stay calm. Stay in. Help is coming. Help is coming. I want to believe that. I want to believe there are people with the knowledge and resources to stop this, to understand what's happening and implement a solution. But I've been doing this job long enough to recognize when official statements are designed to prevent panic rather than convey truth. Stay calm is what you tell people when the situation is anything but calm. The power grid is still functioning, which means the utility workers are still at their posts, still keeping the systems running despite everything happening outside. Water is still flowing. Natural gas is still pumping. These are remarkable things when you think about it. Ordinary people doing extraordinary work to maintain basic services while the world falls apart around them. We owe them everything, and most of them will never be acknowledged or thanked. I wonder how long they'll keep going. How long before the fear outweighs the duty? Before people decide their own survival matters more than keeping the lights on for strangers? I don't blame anyone who makes that choice. Survival is a powerful instinct, but every person who abandons their post, every system that fails, brings us closer to complete collapse. And we're not far from complete collapse right now. Emily is tracking emergency service responses. Police, fire, medical, all of them are operating at a fraction of normal capacity. Units that respond to calls often don't report back. Radio silent. Either they're too busy to transmit, they've lost communication equipment, or they're no longer in a condition to respond. I don't want to speculate which, but the pattern is clear. We're losing first responders at an alarming rate. Without first responders, without that thin line between order and chaos, things deteriorate rapidly. People start making their own decisions about security, about justice, about who lives and who dies. We're already hearing reports of civilians arming themselves, forming groups, barricading neighborhoods. Some of that is necessary self-defense. Some of it will lead to tragedies, to mistakes, to people getting hurt who didn't need to get hurt. Fear makes everyone dangerous. I'm trying to stay focused on facts, on verified information, but it's getting harder to distinguish between reliable reports and rumors. Emily is doing her best to filter the incoming calls and messages, but the volume is overwhelming. Everyone wants answers. Everyone wants to know if their neighborhood is safe, if their family members are okay, if they should stay or go. I can't answer those questions. I don't have enough information. Nobody does. What I can tell you is this: the situation is not improving. Every hour brings reports of new incidents in new areas. The containment zone keeps expanding. The authorities keep revising their estimates of how many people are affected. The numbers are meaningless at this point. Thousands, tens of thousands, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether you're safe right now in this moment and what you're going to do to stay safe in the next moment. Think short term. Think immediate. Don't worry about tomorrow or next week. Worry about the next hour. Emily is on the phone with someone claiming to be calling from inside the county medical center. I'm listening to her side of the conversation. It's bad. The hospital is in lockdown. They've sealed the emergency department because infected individuals kept arriving, kept attacking staff and other patients. Several floors are compromised. Medical personnel are trapped in upper levels. Security can't contain the situation. She's asking about evacuation plans. The person on the other end is saying there are no evacuation plans. Nowhere to evacuate to. The streets around the hospital are full of infected. Ambulances that left to transport patients haven't returned. The loading docks are blocked with abandoned vehicles. They're trapped. Doctors, nurses, patients, all trapped inside a building that's supposed to be a place of healing. And instead it's become a cage. Emily is trying to get information about any medical guidance, any treatment that's shown success with the infected. The person is saying nothing works. Sedatives don't calm them. Restraints get broken. Wounds don't slow them down. The only thing that stops them is massive trauma to the brain or complete destruction of the body. That's not medical advice, that's battlefield triage. The call is ending. The person on the other end is saying they have to go, something is happening on their floor. Emily is asking them to stay on the line. They're not responding, the line is dead. I need to take a moment here, I need to breathe. We're at 12:47, almost 3.5 hours since this started. I've been broadcasting continuously, trying to keep you informed, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy. But there's nothing normal about this. There's nothing normal about a city tearing itself apart, about people turning into something that doesn't respond to reason or compassion or force. I don't know what to call them. The infected, the contaminated, the affected. None of those terms feel adequate. They're people. They were people. Someone's neighbor, someone's coworker, someone's family. And now there's something else, something driven by base aggression, by an urge to attack and bite and spread whatever is in their blood to everyone they encounter. It's spreading through fluid contact. That much is clear from the pattern of infections, blood, saliva, any exchange of bodily fluids during an attack. The incubation period, if you can call it that, is incredibly short. Minutes from exposure to symptom, minutes from symptoms to full transformation into one of those things. I've never seen an infectious agent work that fast. Nothing biological should propagate that rapidly, but the evidence is overwhelming. This is spreading faster than any disease outbreak in recorded history. Emily is pulling data from the State Health Department database. In the past 3 hours, hospitals across the region have reported over 4,000 cases of violent psychotic behavior. 4,000 confirmed. The actual number is likely much higher because many incidents aren't being reported, many people aren't making it to hospitals, many facilities have stopped recording data altogether. 4,000 in 3 hours. Exponential growth. Each infected person attacks multiple others. Each of those attacks creates new infected. The numbers double, triple, quadruple. Within hours, you're not dealing with an outbreak. You're dealing with a cascade, a chain reaction that can't be stopped by conventional means. The only way to stop exponential spread is to break the transmission chain. Isolate the infected, prevent contact between affected and unaffected populations. Quarantine. That's what the containment zones are supposed to accomplish. But quarantine only works if you can identify and separate the infected before they have a chance to spread the contagion further. We're past that point. The infection is already embedded in the population. It's in the suburbs, the industrial zones, the commercial districts. It's in places where people gathered this morning before anyone knew there was a problem. Schools, offices, shopping centers, transit hubs, anywhere people congregated is now a potential hotspot. Emily just showed me a map that the State Emergency Management Office distributed an hour ago. It shows the projected spread pattern based on current infection rates and population density. The entire metropolitan area is expected to be compromised within 12 hours. 12 hours, that's 8 o'clock tonight. After that, the projections show the infection spreading to adjacent counties, neighboring cities. Within 48 hours, the entire state could be affected. Within a week, the region. After that, the models break down because there are too many variables, too many unknowns about how the infection behaves in different environments and climate. But the trajectory is clear. This doesn't stop on its own. It doesn't burn out or reach some natural equilibrium. It keeps spreading until there's no one left to infect, unless someone finds a way to stop it. I want to believe that's happening somewhere. Scientists are analyzing samples, running tests, developing treatments or vaccines or some method of neutralizing the infection. Military strategists are planning containment operations, coordinating resources, preparing to deploy whatever force is necessary to protect unaffected areas. But I also know how bureaucracy works, how slowly institutions respond to crises, how much time gets wasted on meetings and approval chains and protocol. We don't have time for any of that. Every hour we delay, every moment spent debating the appropriate response, thousands more people become infected. The governor's office issued another statement 20 minutes ago. Martial law has been declared in the affected counties. Curfew is in effect immediately. Anyone on the streets after 1 o'clock this afternoon will be subject to arrest or use of force. Military checkpoints are being established at county lines. No one is permitted to enter or leave the quarantine zone without authorization. Martial law, that's the legal framework for what comes next. Military control of civilian infrastructure. Suspension of normal legal protections. Authorization for soldiers to use lethal force against American citizens. I'm not criticizing the decision. Desperate situations require desperate measures. But I want you to understand what it means. If you're caught outside after curfew, if you try to cross a checkpoint without authorization, you could be shot. No warning, no trial, no appeal. The rules have changed. The social contract that normally protects us from state violence has been suspended. Stay inside. That's the safest option. The only option, really. Emily is monitoring the police scanner again. There's very little traffic now. Most units have gone silent or are transmitting in short, cryptic bursts. Code phrases that she doesn't recognize, probably internal protocols developed specifically for this situation. One transmission came through clearly about 10 minutes ago. An officer requesting permission to fall back from a position in the Riverside District. The dispatcher denied the request, ordered the unit to hold their position and prevent infected from crossing the bridge into the downtown area. The officer repeated the request, said the situation was untenable, said they couldn't hold. The dispatcher repeated the order. The officer acknowledged and went silent. I don't know if that unit is still there. I don't know if they're alive. But I know they were ordered to stand and fight against overwhelming odds, because holding that bridge matters more than their individual survival. That's what soldiers do. That's what we're asking them to do. And some of them won't be coming home. The weather is changing outside. The overcast is thickening, temperature dropping. The forecast called for possible snow tonight. Snow in late December isn't unusual here, but it's terrible timing. Winter weather will complicate everything. Travel becomes more dangerous. Sheltering becomes harder. Utilities are more likely to fail. People burn fuel to stay warm, creating carbon monoxide risks in poorly ventilated spaces. And the infected don't care about cold. They don't feel discomfort. They don't seek shelter. They'll keep moving regardless of weather, while everyone else has to make impossible choices about whether to stay warm or stay hidden. We need to talk about supplies, because this is going to be a long-term situation. Even if the authorities manage to contain the outbreak, even if the infection is stopped from spreading beyond the current quarantine zone, you're looking at weeks or months before normalcy returns. Maybe longer, maybe never, depending on how bad this gets. Water is the priority. Humans can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. Fill every container you have. Bathtubs, sinks, pots, bottles, anything that holds liquid. Do it now while the water system is still pressurized. When the treatment plants lose power or get overrun, when the workers stop showing up, the taps will run dry. Food is next. Non-perishables. Canned goods, dried pasta, rice, anything with a long shelf life that doesn't require refrigeration. If you have a working refrigerator, eat those items first before the power fails. Frozen food will last a day or two after the power goes out if you keep the freezer closed. After that, it spoils. Medical supplies. Bandages, antiseptics, pain relievers, any prescription medications you or your family need. Pharmacies are probably already looted or inaccessible, so work with what you have. If someone in your household has a chronic condition requiring regular medication, ration carefully and prepare for the possibility of running out. Tools and weapons. I'm not advocating violence, but you need some means of defense. A baseball bat, a kitchen knife, anything that extends your reach and gives you a chance against an attacker. Preferably something you can use from a distance. Remember, close combat means exposure to blood and fluids, which means infection risk. Light and heat. Flashlights, batteries, candles, matches. If the power fails, you'll be in darkness. If the heat fails, you'll freeze. Prepare for both. But be careful with open flames in enclosed spaces. Carbon monoxide poisoning kills just as surely as infection. Communication. Battery-powered radio. Keep it tuned to emergency broadcasts. That might be your only source of information when other systems fail. We'll keep transmitting as long as we can, as long as the generator holds out, as long as it's safe to stay in this building. I don't know how long that will be. Emily just informed me that we've lost contact with several radio stations that were broadcasting emergency information earlier. Their signals have gone dead. Either their power failed, their equipment was damaged, or their staff abandoned the facility. Each silent station is one less source of coordinated information, one less link in the network trying to keep people informed and alive. Eventually we'll be the last station broadcasting. Eventually we'll go silent too. But until then, I'm staying at this microphone. This is what I know how to do. This is how I can help. It's 1:11 now. The curfew has been in effect for 11 minutes. I'm looking out the studio window at the street below. Empty. Completely empty. No cars, no pedestrians, nothing moving except some papers blowing in the wind. It looks like a photograph, frozen, lifeless. Somewhere beyond what I can see from this window, the city is dying. People are fighting and dying and turning into something that isn't human anymore. But from here, from this quiet room with its soundproofing and thick walls, it's almost possible to pretend everything is normal. Almost. Emily is trying to reach her family. She's been calling periodically all morning with no success. Her parents live in Meridian Heights, about 8 miles northwest of here. That neighborhood was listed on the compromised areas report from 40 minutes ago. She keeps dialing, keeps getting nothing. No ring, no voicemail, just silent. I told her she should leave, should try to get home while there's still time. She said she's staying. Said someone needs to help me monitor communications. Said her parents would want her to keep working, keep helping others. I don't know if that's true or if she's just afraid to find out what happened to them. Either way, I'm grateful she's here. I couldn't do this alone. The federal government issued a statement 20 minutes ago. The president addressed the nation from an undisclosed location, described the situation as a localized industrial accident with serious but manageable consequences, said that federal resources are being deployed, that the National Guard and military are establishing control, that citizens should remain calm and follow the instructions of local authorities. Manageable, that was the word used. Manageable. I don't think the president has seen the reports we're seeing. I don't think anyone at that level understands how fast this is moving, how thoroughly the local response has collapsed, how little time is left before manageable becomes uncontrollable. Or maybe they do understand and they're lying to prevent nationwide panic. Maybe they've already written off this city, this region, decided that containing the outbreak means sacrificing everyone inside the quarantine zone. Maybe the checkpoints at the county lines aren't there to keep infected out. Maybe they're there to keep everyone in. That's a dark thought. I don't want to believe it. But I've seen enough of how governments respond to crises to know that sometimes difficult decisions get made, decisions that value the many over the few. If letting 1 million people die means saving 10 million, that's not even a hard choice for the people making it. It's mathematics, cold, brutal mathematics. Emily just picked up a transmission from one of the military checkpoints on the southern county line. A large group of civilians attempted to breach the barricade, tried to force their way through on foot after their vehicles were turned back. The soldiers fired warning shots. The crowd didn't stop. The order was given to open fire. Casualties unknown. The checkpoint is holding. Those were our people, our neighbors, our community, desperate to escape, willing to risk anything to get out of the quarantine zone. And they were shot down by soldiers following orders to maintain containment. This is what we've become. This is what happens when society breaks down, when the mechanisms we built to protect each other start being used to protect some of us from the rest of us. I'm not assigning blame. The soldiers at that checkpoint are doing what they've been told to do, following lawful orders from their chain of command. The people trying to breach the checkpoint were acting out of fear and desperation, trying to save themselves and their families. Everyone is making rational choices based on their circumstances, and those rational choices are getting people killed. The infection is the enemy, not the soldiers, not the civilians, not the government officials trying to manage an impossible situation. The infection, that's what we need to fight. But we're fighting each other instead because fear and confusion make enemies of everyone. I wish I had better news. I wish I could tell you that help is arriving, that the situation is under control, that everything is going to be fine. But I can't lie to you. The situation is deteriorating. Help is not arriving in time. Things are not fine. What I can tell you is that you're not alone. Everyone listening to this broadcast, everyone sheltering in their homes right now, everyone afraid and uncertain and struggling to understand what's happening, we're all in this together. We're all facing the same threat, the same fears, the same impossible choices, and we're going to get through this. Some of us will, some of us have to, because if no one survives, if everyone becomes infected, if humanity ends here in this city on this day, then all the struggle and sacrifice and suffering means nothing. Someone has to live, someone has to remember, someone has to carry forward whatever lessons can be learned from this catastrophe. Maybe that someone is you. Maybe you're the one who figures out how to survive, how to stay hidden, how to outlast the infection until it burns itself out or gets stopped or evolves into something less virulent. Maybe years from now, you'll be telling your children or grandchildren about the day the world ended and how you made it through. I'd like to think that's possible. I'd like to think there's a future beyond this crisis. Emily is showing me video footage someone just sent to the station's email address. I'm watching it now on her laptop screen. It's taken from a high-rise apartment looking down at a major intersection about 2 miles from here. The streets are full of hundreds of them, maybe thousands, moving through the intersection in a slow tide. Some are running, some shambling, some crawling, all heading in the same direction, north toward the densest population areas, toward neighborhoods that might still be uninfected, following some instinct or stimulus we don't understand. They're hunting. That's what this looks like. A hunting pack. driven by hunger or aggression or whatever neurological impulse controls them now. And they're coordinated in some basic way, moving as a group rather than randomly dispersing. That's new information. That's terrifying information. If the infected can coordinate, if they can hunt in groups, then isolated survivors have almost no chance. Barricades won't hold against sustained assault. Hiding spots will be found through systematic searching. Every defensive advantage we thought we had becomes worthless. I'm going to step away from the microphone for a few minutes. I need to collect myself, need to think about what we're seeing and what it means for everyone listening. Emily will monitor the emergency channels while I'm gone. If anything critical develops, she'll bring it to my attention immediately. I'll be back. I'm not abandoning this broadcast. I'm not abandoning you. Just need a moment. That's all. All right. I'm back. It's 1:48. I took about 10 minutes to walk around the building, check the security of our doors and windows, verify that our backup generator has sufficient fuel. Everything is secure for now. The generator has maybe 18 hours of runtime left at current load. After that, we'll be on battery backup for essential equipment, which buys us another 6 to 8 hours before we go completely dark. Call it a day. We have a day before this station falls silent. Emily made coffee while I was doing my rounds. Real coffee from the break room machine that still works because we still have power. It's strange how normal that feels, how comforting. The world is ending outside, but we can still make coffee and sit at our desks and pretend we're just working another shift. These small normalcies matter. They keep us tethered to our humanity, remind us that we're still people with routines and preferences and the capacity to find comfort in familiar rituals. When those normalcies disappear, when we lose the last connections to the world we knew, that's when we truly become survivors instead of citizens. I don't think we're at that point yet, but we're close. The military issued an update on containment operations. National Guard units have established a perimeter around the affected area using a combination of vehicle checkpoints, fortified positions, and rapid response teams. The perimeter is approximately 60 miles in circumference, encompassing the city and several surrounding townships. Total population inside the containment zone is estimated at 1.2 million people. 1.2 million. That's how many lives are at stake. That's how many people are trapped inside this zone with an infection that's spreading exponentially. Even if the military perimeter holds perfectly, even if not a single infected individual escapes containment, we're talking about a potential death toll that exceeds most natural disasters in recorded history. And the perimeter won't hold perfectly. It can't. 60 miles of border, most of it running through rural areas with limited visibility and access. People will find ways through. Infected will find ways through. The containment will leave. The only question is how badly and how fast. Emily is fielding calls from people asking about evacuation options. I've told her to be honest with them. There are no evacuation options. The checkpoints are closed. Attempting to breach them will result in being shot. The only safe choice is to shelter in place and wait for the situation to change. Some people accept that answer. Some get angry, accuse us of lying or withholding information. Some just cry. I understand all of those reactions. When you're trapped with no good options, when every choice leads to danger or death, anger and grief are perfectly reasonable responses. We're doing what we can to help. Emily has compiled a list of survival tips, practical advice about securing homes, rationing supplies, avoiding detection by infected. We're broadcasting that information every hour on the half hour. It's not much, but it's something. It's a way to give people agency, to help them feel like they have some control over their fate even when control is mostly illusory. The hospital situation has deteriorated further. Emily spoke with someone who claimed to have escaped from the county medical center about an hour ago. They described complete chaos inside. Infected patients attacking staff, security unable to maintain control, fires breaking out on multiple floors. The evacuation they mentioned earlier never happened. Everyone still inside is presumably dead or infected. One of the largest hospitals in the region gone. All that medical knowledge, all that equipment, all those people who dedicated their lives to healing, just gone. Erased in the span of a few hours by an infection that turns caregivers into victims and victims into predators. How many doctors and nurses died today? How many were infected while trying to help patients while following their oaths to do no harm? The people we count on most during emergencies, the ones trained to run toward danger instead of away from it, they're the first casualties because their instinct is to help even when helping becomes fatal. We've lost so much already: knowledge, infrastructure, leadership, trust. Every institution we built to protect ourselves has proven inadequate against this threat. Police can't maintain order, hospitals can't treat the sick, Government can't coordinate an effective response. The social structures that normally hold civilization together are collapsing under stress. They were never designed to withstand, and we're only 4 hours into this crisis. 4 hours. What happens after a day? A week? A month? I keep coming back to that question because I can't avoid it. This isn't a temporary disruption that gets resolved quickly and then we all go back to normal. This is a fundamental break, a before and after moment in history. Whatever comes next, assuming anything comes next, will be completely different from the world we knew this morning. The old world ended when that container burned at the dump site. We just didn't know it yet. Emily is showing me social media posts from people inside the containment zone. Most of the major platforms are still functioning intermittently despite network overload. People are documenting what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, leaving digital footprints for anyone who might find them later. One post shows a woman barricading her apartment door with furniture while something pounds on the other side. Another shows a view from a rooftop of fires burning across the city skyline. A third is just text, a father saying goodbye to his children who are in another state, telling them he loves them, telling them to be strong. These aren't news reports or official statements. These are ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances, trying to leave some record of their existence, some proof that they mattered. And I'm bearing witness to it, reading their words, seeing their images, carrying their stories forward for as long as I can. That's all we can do now. Bear witness. Remember, honor the dead in dying by refusing to forget them. The power grid is showing signs of strain. Emily noticed voltage fluctuations on our monitoring equipment. Nothing critical yet, but it suggests that power plants are operating with reduced staff or damaged infrastructure. How long until the grid fails entirely depends on too many variables to predict accurately. But when it fails, it will fail fast. Power systems are interconnected, dependent on constant balance between generation and load. When one part fails, the load shifts to other parts, which can cascade into widespread blackouts. We could go from full power to total darkness in minutes. Our generator will keep us running for a while after that happens. But generators need fuel, and fuel requires supply chains that probably don't exist anymore. When our tank runs dry, that's it. No more power. No more broadcast. No more connection to anyone outside this building. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe by the time our generator fails, there won't be anyone left listening anyway. I'm sorry, that was dark. I'm trying to maintain hope here, trying to give you reasons to keep fighting, keep surviving. But the truth is, I'm scared, I'm terrified. I'm watching my city die and there's nothing I can do about it except sit at this microphone and describe what's happening. It feels inadequate. It feels like I should be doing more, helping more directly, making some tangible difference, instead of just talking. But this is what I have. This is my skill, my contribution. And maybe it matters. Maybe someone listening right now is making a better decision because of information I provided. Maybe that saves their life. I have to believe that's possible. I have to believe this broadcast serves a purpose beyond my own need to feel useful. Emily just received a call from someone claiming to be with the National Guard unit stationed at the Western Perimeter checkpoint. They're reporting sustained pressure from infected attempting to breach the barricade, hundreds of them pressing against the barriers, climbing over vehicles, showing no fear of gunfire or barriers. The unit is holding for now, but ammunition is becoming a concern. They're rationing shots, trying to make every bullet count, but you can't ration effectively against an enemy that doesn't stop coming. Eventually you run out of ammunition, or you run out of time, or you make a mistake and the line breaks. When that line breaks, everything west of here becomes exposed. Communities that thought they were safe behind the military perimeter will discover they're not safe at all. The infection will spread into new areas, create new hotspots, restart the cycle of transmission and transformation. Unless the military has reserves we don't know about. Unless there's a fallback plan for when the first perimeter fails. Maybe they're buying time for a second perimeter to be established further out, sacrificing this region to save the rest of the state or region. That would make strategic sense. Brutal, but sensible. Contain the outbreak to the smallest possible area and write off everything inside that area as lost. Focus resources on protecting the majority rather than trying to save everyone. I wonder if we've already been written off. I wonder if the people making decisions about resource allocation have already decided we're not worth saving, that our deaths are an acceptable price for preventing wider contamination. I wonder if they're right. The weather outside has turned. Light snow is falling now, visible against the gray sky. It's beautiful in a terrible way. Pure white snow drifting down on a city that's tearing itself apart. Nature doesn't care about our crisis. Nature just continues, indifferent to human suffering, following patterns established over billions of years. There's something almost comforting about that indifference. The universe isn't punishing us. There's no cosmic judgment here, no divine retribution. This is just chemistry and biology and bad luck, a series of unfortunate coincidences that created the conditions for disaster. We burned the wrong materials at the wrong time in the wrong place with the wrong wind conditions. That's all this is, random chance. And millions of people are dying because of it. That randomness might be the hardest part to accept. We want our tragedies to have meaning, to serve some purpose or teach some lesson. But sometimes bad things just happen for no reason at all. Sometimes the universe is simply chaotic and cruel and doesn't care about our need for narrative coherence. Emily is listening to something on her headphones, monitoring one of the emergency channels. Her expression is changing, becoming more strained. She's gesturing for me to wait while she confirms what she's hearing. All right. She just handed me notes from a transmission that came through on a restricted military frequency. I'm not supposed to have access to these communications, but Emily found a way to intercept them. What I'm about to tell you is not official, not confirmed through proper channels, but the source appears legitimate. The federal government has authorized the use of strategic containment measures if the perimeter fails. That's the phrase used. Strategic containment measures. Emily thinks it's a euphemism for something more severe, possibly the complete destruction of the containment zone to prevent the infection from spreading. Complete destruction. Firebombing, fuel-air explosives, tactical nuclear weapons, whatever it takes to sterilize the area and eliminate the infection along with everyone and everything inside the perimeter. I don't know if that assessment is accurate. I don't know if the government would actually authorize the destruction of an American city and the murder of 1 million civilians to stop an outbreak. But I know they're considering it. I know that option is on the table now. We've become acceptable losses. Statistics in a risk assessment. The equation is simple. Lose 1 million people here or risk losing everyone everywhere. For the people running those calculations, it's not even a difficult choice. I'm telling you this not to create panic, but because you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to understand exactly how serious this situation is, how little time might be left. If you've been hesitating about securing your shelter, about gathering supplies, about making difficult decisions regarding your safety, stop hesitating. Act now. This might be your last chance. The snow is getting heavier outside, visibility is dropping. That will make it harder for infected to hunt, but also harder for survivors to see threats approaching. Everything is trade-offs now. Every advantage comes with corresponding disadvantages. I'm watching the clock. 2:37. 5.5 hours since this started. The city has transformed completely in that time. From normal to chaos to something approaching death. The streets that were crowded this morning are empty now, except for infected and the occasional desperate survivor trying to move between hiding spots. Emily pulled up satellite imagery from a commercial weather service that's still updating. The images are an hour old, but they show the extent of the damage. Fires burning in multiple districts, abandoned vehicles clogging every major road, areas that should be filled with people showing no movement, no life, just stillness. From above, the city looks dead already. Looks like it's been dead for years. Like we're seeing archaeological remains rather than an ongoing crisis. But we know better. We know that stillness is deceptive, that those empty streets are actually full of infected waiting for movement, waiting for prey. The hunting behavior Emily and I observed earlier seems to be confirmed. Multiple reports describe infected gathering in groups, moving in coordinated patterns, responding to stimuli in ways that suggest retained capacity for basic strategy. They're not mindless. They're not random. They're predators operating on instinct, and those instincts are disturbingly effective. A survivor who called in 20 minutes ago described watching infected systematically search a building floor by floor. They checked every door, every possible hiding place, working together to flush out anyone inside. That's not random shambling, that's organized hunting. If that's true, if infected retain enough cognitive function to hunt strategically, then our survival recommendations need to change. Hiding isn't enough. You need to hide in places they won't think to search, in spaces that don't look like hiding spots. You need to outsmart them, stay multiple steps ahead of their hunting patterns. That requires constant vigilance, constant creativity, constant stress that will wear you down mentally and physically over time. You can't maintain that level of awareness indefinitely. Eventually you'll make a mistake, overlook something, let your guard down for just a moment, and that moment will be fatal. I wish I had better advice. I wish I could tell you there's a safe strategy, a guaranteed way to survive, but there isn't. Every option carries risk. Every decision could be the wrong one. All you can do is make the best choices available with the information you have and hope those choices are good enough. The military frequency Emily is monitoring has gone quiet. No transmissions for over 15 minutes. That could mean nothing, could mean they've switched to different channels we can't access. Or it could mean something happened to the units that were transmitting. Equipment failure, combat casualties, position overrun. We have no way to know. We're operating in an information vacuum, trying to piece together reality from fragments and scattered reports. It's like assembling a puzzle with most of the pieces missing and no picture to reference. But we keep trying because what else can we do? Giving up means accepting death, accepting that everything ends here. And I'm not ready to accept that. Not yet. Emily just received an email from someone claiming to be sheltering in a high school about 4 miles from here. They're part of a group that gathered there when the outbreak started, teachers and students who were in the building when the lockdown was announced. They barricaded the doors, secured the perimeter, established a defensive position. For a while they thought they were safe. The school is large, well-built, designed to be secure, but infected found them anyway. Started gathering outside, pounding on doors and windows, testing the defense. The group inside could hear them, could see them through windows. Hundreds of infected surrounding the building. Then the infected started getting inside, found an unsecured entrance that nobody checked. Within minutes, the interior was compromised. The group retreated to the second floor, barricaded the stairwells, but there are so many infected now, so much pressure on the barricades. The person writing the email is asking for help, asking if rescue is possible, if anyone is coming, if there's any hope of getting out alive. They're describing the sounds they're hearing, the doors breaking, the barricades failing. They know they're going to die. They just want someone to know what happened, want their story recorded. I don't know how to respond. What do you say to someone in that situation? Empty reassurances feel insulting. Honesty feels cruel. So I'm just going to read their message, put their words into the record, make sure they're not forgotten. My name is Cordelia Brennan. I'm 17 years old. I'm trapped in Riverside High School with about 30 other people. We thought we'd be safe here. We were wrong. They're inside now. I can hear them getting closer. My phone battery is almost dead. If anyone finds this, please tell my parents I love them. Tell them I tried. Tell them I'm sorry I couldn't make it home. To anyone else reading this, I hope you survive. I hope you find somewhere safe. I hope this all ends soon. Don't make the same mistakes we did. Don't think anywhere is really safe. Keep moving. Keep fighting. Don't give up. Please don't give up. That's the end of the message. It was sent 14 minutes ago. We haven't heard anything since. Cordelia Brennan, 17 years old, student at Riverside High School. I'm saying her name so someone remembers. So her existence mattered beyond the few people who knew her personally. This is what we're losing. Not just numbers, not just statistics, but individuals with names and families and futures that will never happen now. Every death is a universe of potential erased. All the things that person might have done or become, all gone. And we can't save them. We can't save any of them. All we can do is bear witness and hope that witnessing serves some purpose, that remembering the dead somehow honors them. It doesn't. Nothing honors them. They're dead and gone, and no amount of remembering changes that. But we remember anyway because the alternative is worse. The alternative is letting them disappear completely, leaving no trace as if they never existed at all. The snow is accumulating outside now. Must be 2 or 3 inches on the ground already. The forecast called for light snow, not this. But weather patterns are chaotic, unpredictable. Or maybe the forecast was wrong because the meteorologists who make forecasts are dealing with the same crisis as everyone else and couldn't focus on their jobs. Everything is connected. Every system depends on other systems. When one fails, the cascading effects ripple outward until nothing works properly anymore. We're seeing that happen in real time. Power fluctuations, because workers abandon plant communication failures, because technicians are dead or infected. Forecast errors because meteorologists are focused on survival instead of weather prediction. This is how civilization ends. Not with a bang, but with a cascade of small failures that accumulate into complete systemic collapse. Emily is trying to reach her family again. Still no answer, still just silence. She's been trying for hours now with the same result. At some point she'll have to accept that they're not going to answer, that whatever happened to them has already happened. But that point isn't now. Right now she can still hope. Right now there's still a chance, however small, that they're alive somewhere without access to phones, sheltering safely, waiting for this to be over. I'm not going to take that hope away from her. Hope might be all that keeps us functional right now. When hope fails, when we fully accept how bad this is and how unlikely survival becomes, that's when we stop trying. that's when we give up. So we maintain hope even when hope seems irrational. We believe in possibilities even when evidence suggests impossibility. We act as if survival is achievable even when all indications suggest otherwise. Because the alternative is surrender, and surrender is death. The military perimeter is under increasing pressure. Emily intercepted multiple transmissions reporting large concentrations of infected moving toward checkpoint locations. The infected are migrating, drawn toward noise and activity, converging on the defensive positions that are supposed to contain them. This presents the military with an impossible choice. Open fire and kill the infected, which creates more noise and attracts more infected in a cycle that depletes ammunition and eventually leads to position collapse. Or hold fire and let the infected press against the barriers, hope the physical defenses hold without kinetic support. Neither option is sustainable long term. Eventually the checkpoints will fail. It's just a question of when and how, catastrophically. I'm wondering if the infected are being drawn to the checkpoints deliberately, if whatever remains of their cognitive function recognizes military positions as significant targets. Or maybe it's just accident, random movement that happens to concentrate in those areas because of terrain or previous population density. Either way, the result is the same. Pressure on the perimeter increases, the containment becomes harder to maintain. The probability of breach rises, and when the breach happens, all the strategic calculations change. The infection escapes, new areas become threatened, the response escalates. Those strategic containment measures Emily mentioned earlier become more likely, more imminent. We might be hours away from that decision, might be less. Depends on factors we can't observe or predict. If the snow is affecting visibility badly now, I can barely see across the street from the studio window. Everything is white, obscured, transformed into an indistinct blur. In other circumstances, this would be beautiful. Right now, it just feels isolating, like the world is being erased around us. Emily says our internet connection is becoming unstable. We're losing packets, experiencing significant latency. That's probably network infrastructure failing as support personnel abandon their posts or become casualties. Every minute of connectivity we maintain now is borrowed time dependent on systems that are actively degrading. When the internet fails completely, we lose our window into what's happening beyond our immediate area. No more social media updates, no more emails from survivors, no more satellite imagery or news reports. Just radio communications and direct observation. Back to analog information gathering in a digital world that's collapsing into pre-digital conditions. There's a certain irony in that. We built all this technology to connect us, to share information globally, to overcome the limitations of physical distance. And in crisis, when we need those connections most, the technology fails and we're thrown back on primitive methods that have remained reliable for over a century. Radio waves don't depend on servers or data centers or fiber optic cables. Radio keeps working as long as you have power and functioning equipment. That's why we're still on air when more sophisticated platforms have failed. That's why you're hearing my voice right now. But radio has limitations. One-way communication mostly, unless someone calls in. Limited range depending on transmission power. Susceptibility to interference and atmospheric conditions. It's better than nothing, but it's not enough for coordinating large-scale response or maintaining detailed situational awareness. We're fumbling in the dark, making decisions with incomplete information, hoping we're not making catastrophic mistakes. It's 3:18 now, 6 hours since the first reports. I've been at this microphone almost continuously since we began emergency broadcasting. My voice is getting hoarse, my throat dry despite the coffee Emily keeps bringing me. I should probably rest, let someone else take over for a while. But there is no one else. It's just me and Emily in this building. Just two people trying to keep a radio station operational in the middle of an apocalypse. If I stop, the broadcast stops. If the broadcast stops, everyone listening loses their connection to information and possibly to hope. So I keep going, keep talking, keep reading the reports. Emily hands me in trying to make sense of impossible situations. A woman called 3 minutes ago asking whether she should leave her apartment to search for food. She's been sheltered in place since morning following official guidance, but her supplies are limited and she's diabetic. Needs insulin, needs food to maintain blood sugar levels, running out of both. I told her the truth. Going outside is extremely dangerous. Infected are everywhere. The probability of making it to a store and back safely is very low. But staying inside without necessary medical supplies guarantees death, just slower and more certain. So what's the right answer? Risk immediate death by infection for a chance at survival, or accept inevitable death from medical complications while remaining relatively safe. There is no right answer. Both choices lead to death. She's just choosing which death she prefers. Which risk feels more acceptable? She thanked me and hung up. I don't know what she decided. I'll probably never know whether she survived or how she died. She's just one more person facing impossible choices in an impossible situation, trying to navigate a landscape where every option is terrible. This is what survival looks like now. Not heroic resistance or clever strategy, just ordinary people making horrible decisions and living or dying based on luck as much as judgment. Emily is showing me an updated map of incident reports. The infection has spread to every district in the city. No safe zones remain. Nowhere is unaffected. The entire metropolitan area is compromised. That's what complete outbreak looks like. Not pockets of infection with safe areas between them. Total penetration. Every neighborhood, every street, every building potentially harboring infected. Density varies by area, some places more saturated than others, but nowhere is truly clear. For survivors, this means constant danger. Can't let your guard down. Can't assume any location is safe just because it appears abandoned. Infected could be anywhere. Waiting, hunting, drawn by sound or movement or scent, and there's no cavalry coming. No rescue teams sweeping through to clear buildings and escort survivors to safety. Everyone who might have performed those rescues is either dead, infected, or busy trying to survive themselves. You're on your own, everyone is on their own. That's the new reality. The military frequency is active again. Emily is listening to transmissions from multiple checkpoints, reporting contact with large groups of infected, estimate hundreds at each location. Possibly thousands concentrated at the eastern perimeter where several major highways converge. The infected are pressing against barriers, climbing over vehicles, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. Soldiers are firing continuously, expending ammunition at unsustainable rates. Supply lines are disrupted. Resupply isn't coming. One checkpoint reported running out of ammunition completely. Soldiers fell back to secondary positions using hand-to-hand weapons. Last transmission from that position was chaos, screaming, then silence. The perimeter is failing, not everywhere at once, but section by section, position by position. As each checkpoint falls, the infected flow through into areas beyond, creating new infection zones, restarting the transmission cycle in communities that were briefly spared. This is what exponential spread looks like at scale. Not arithmetic increase, but geometric multiplication. 1 becomes 10, becomes 100, becomes 1,000. The numbers accelerate beyond any ability to track or control them. And once the perimeter is breached, once the infection escapes containment, there's no putting it back. It spreads outward from the breach point, carried by infected who don't stop, don't rest, don't need supplies or support. They just move and attack and spread until they're destroyed or there's no one left to infect. How far could it go? How much of the region, the state, the country could become infected before effective countermeasures are implemented? I don't know. Nobody knows. This is unprecedented. We have no historical comparison, no models that predicted this scenario, no playbook for response. We're improvising in real time, making critical decisions with incomplete information, hoping we're not condemning millions more people to death through our ignorance and delay. The snow is still falling. The city is quiet except for distant sounds that might be gunfire or might be something else. Hard to tell through the insulation and soundproofing. Hard to know what's happening just blocks away. That's another effect of systemic collapse. Loss of situational awareness. In normal times, we have dozens of information channels keeping us updated on conditions throughout the area. Traffic cameras, news helicopters, police reports, citizen observations. Now we have fragments, glimpses, disconnected pieces that don't form a coherent picture. We know the infection is spreading, but we don't know where it's concentrated. We know the military perimeter is failing, but we don't know where the breaches are occurring. We know people are dying, but we don't know how many or where or how quickly. Operating in this information void is terrifying. Every decision is a guess. Every assumption could be wrong. We might be giving advice that gets people killed because we don't understand the actual conditions they're facing. But we have to give some guidance, some framework for decision making, because people are calling and asking what to do and silence isn't an answer. So we do our best with what we know. We share the information we have. We acknowledge what we don't know. We remind everyone that survival is personal, that what works for one person might fail for another, that there are no guarantees or certain paths, and we hope that's enough. Hope our words help more than they hurt. Hope the people listening can filter our advice through their own judgment and circumstances, to make choices that keep them alive. Hope is all we have left. Emily just informed me that our generator fuel is lower than previously estimated. We've been running at higher load than expected, powering equipment that normally draws from grid power. At current consumption rate, we have maybe 12 hours instead of 18. That puts us offline around 3 in the morning unless we can reduce power usage or find additional fuel. There's a fuel storage facility 6 blocks from here. Normally we just call for delivery, but delivery services don't exist anymore. If we want fuel, someone has to go get it. Someone has to leave this building, travel through infected territory, break into a secured facility, transport heavy containers back here, all without getting killed or infected. The probability of success is very low. The probability of dying in the attempt is very high. And if we don't try, the broadcast dies in 12 hours and everyone listening loses this information source. Emily is volunteering to go. She says, I need to stay here to maintain the broadcast, says she can move quietly, says she knows where the facility is and how to access it. She's rationalizing, convincing herself this is achievable when we both know it's probably suicide. I can't let her do it. Can't let her throw her life away on a mission that's likely to fail. But I also can't stop her because she's right that we need fuel and someone has to try. This is command responsibility. Sending people into danger knowing they'll probably die. Sacrificing individuals for the theoretical greater good. It feels wrong, but all the alternatives are worse. I told her to wait. Told her to let me think about this, consider options, see if there's another way. She agreed, but I can see in her expression that she's already decided. She's going regardless of what I say, just giving me the courtesy of pretending I have a choice in the matter. That's leadership in crisis. Not actually making decisions, but pretending you're making decisions while events carry you forward regardless of your preferences. You perform the ritual of deliberation and choice while knowing the outcome is already determined. Maybe I'm being too cynical. Maybe there are genuine choices left, real options that could change outcomes. But right now, sitting in this studio watching the city die, it feels like we're all just passengers in a vehicle with no driver, careening toward inevitable collision. It's 3:49, almost 7 hours since this started. The light outside is beginning to fade despite it being afternoon. Combination of heavy cloud cover and the short December days. Full darkness in a few hours. Then we operate blind except for artificial light that might attract infected attention. Darkness changes everything. What little visibility we have now will vanish completely. Movement becomes more dangerous. Navigation becomes harder. The infected presumably see better in darkness than we do, or at least aren't disadvantaged by it the way we are. Night belongs to them. We get the day, but barely, and only by hiding. A man called asking whether he should try to reach his family in a different part of the city. They're 15 miles away, across multiple areas that are definitely infected. He has a car, has fuel, thinks he can drive fast and avoid confrontations. I told him no. Told him the roads are blocked by abandoned vehicles, that infected congregate around noise and movement, that attempting a 15-mile drive through hostile territory has almost zero chance of success. Told him he's more likely to die trying than to reach his family. He got angry. Said, I don't understand. Said they're his family. Said he has to try. Said if positions were reversed, I'd do the same thing. He's right. I would try. Knowing it's futile, knowing it's probably suicide, I'd still try because the alternative is living with the knowledge that I didn't even attempt to reach people I care about. So I revised my answer. Told him if he's going to try, wait for darkness, use the night as cover. Drive without lights until absolutely necessary. Avoid main roads. Be prepared to abandon the vehicle if it gets blocked or damaged. Carry weapons. Move fast. Don't stop for anyone or anything. And accept that he's probably going to die, but at least he'll die trying to reach his family instead of dying while hiding in safety. He thanked me and hung up. Another voice I'll never hear again. Another person making a doomed choice because all the safe choices feel like surrender. I understand that impulse. I feel it myself. The urge to do something active, something that feels like fighting instead of just surviving. To go down swinging rather than waiting passively for the end. But fighting gets you killed faster. Survival means accepting powerlessness, accepting that you can't change outcomes, accepting that the best you can do is hide and hope and outlast. That acceptance is hard, goes against every instinct about agency and control. We want to believe our actions matter, that we can influence events through will and effort. But sometimes the only winning move is not to play. Sometimes survival means doing nothing. Emily is preparing to leave for the fuel run. She's gathering supplies, checking routes on a map, loading a backpack with tools she might need. I can see her through the studio window, moving with purpose, refusing to acknowledge the fear she must be feeling. She's brave, stupid and brave, going to die for a broadcast that might not even matter, that might not be helping anyone, that might be just empty words spoken into a void. But I can't tell her that. Can't take away the meaning she's assigned to this mission. If she's going to risk her life, she needs to believe it's for something important, something worth dying for. Taking that belief away would be cruel. So I'm letting her go, letting her walk out that door into a city full of things that want to kill her, all so we can broadcast for a few more hours before we go silent anyway. This is what it means to be responsible for others, making impossible decisions and living with the consequences. She's ready to leave now. She's at the door looking back at me. I can see the question in her expression, looking for permission or approval or reassurance that I can't give. I just nod. Just acknowledge that she's doing this, and I'm not stopping her. The door closes, she's gone. I'm alone in the building now, alone at this microphone, alone with the responsibility of keeping this broadcast running for however long possible. The silence in the studio is profound. Just the hum of equipment and my own breathing. Outside the window I can see Emily moving down the street, staying close to buildings, moving quickly but carefully. Then she turns a corner and disappears from view. I don't know if I'll see her again. Probability says no. Statistics say she's already dead, that I'm just waiting for confirmation. But hope says maybe, says there's a chance, says stranger things have happened. Hope is a liar. But it's all I have. The clock shows 4:03. I need to keep talking, need to maintain the broadcast, need to give people who are listening something to hold on to. But my mind is elsewhere, following Emily through streets I can't see, imagining the danger she's facing, wondering if each moment passing is the moment she died. This is torture. This is what command feels like. Sending people to die and sitting safe while it happens. I'm going to take another break. I'm going to walk around, check the building perimeter, verify security, give myself something to do besides sit here imagining Emily's death. I'll be back in a few minutes. If she calls in, if something happens, there's no one here to answer. But the alternative is sitting frozen at this desk, drowning in fear, and that helps no one. I'll be back. The broadcast continues. All right, it's 4:22. I've been monitoring the emergency channels Emily left tuned on her equipment. Nothing unusual. No reports from the area where the fuel facility is located. That could mean nothing is happening, or could mean everyone who might report is already dead. I'm trying not to think about it, trying to focus on information, on the broader situation, on anything except Emily walking alone through an infected city. The military perimeter has suffered multiple breaches. That's confirmed now. Infected have broken through at 3 separate checkpoint locations and are spreading into adjacent areas. The National Guard is attempting to establish fallback positions, but coordination is breaking down. Units are cut off, communications are fragmenting, command structure is collapsing. This is what defeat looks like in real time. Not a single catastrophic failure, but a gradual disintegration of organized resistance. Each small failure compounds into larger failures until the entire defensive posture becomes untenable. And once the military admits defeat, once they withdraw from forward positions and concede territory to the infected, that territory becomes a loss. No reclaiming it. No counterattacking to push the infected back. Just abandonment and retreat, and hope that the next defensive line holds better than the last one. But it won't. The same pressures that collapsed the first perimeter will collapse the second and the third. You can't win a defensive war against an enemy that never stops, never rests, never requires supply or morale or leadership. They just come and come and come until you run out of ammunition or people or will to fight. The only way to win is to eliminate them completely. Every single infected individual must be destroyed. Miss even one and the infection can restart, rebuild, spread again. That's the nightmare of exponential growth. You can kill 99% and the 1% that survives will eventually regenerate the whole population through transmission. So either you achieve complete eradication, or you accept that the infection is permanent, that infected will persist indefinitely as a new feature of the landscape. And I don't think complete eradication is possible. The infection has spread too far, penetrated too many areas, created too many isolated pockets. You'd have to search every building, every vehicle, every possible hiding space. You'd have to maintain that search for weeks or months, ensuring no infected survive to restart the cycle. The resources required for that operation exceed anything we can realistically mobilize. The time required exceeds how long organized society can maintain coherence under crisis conditions. We're going to lose this fight. Maybe not today, maybe not this week, but eventually, the infection will outlast our ability to contain it. That's not defeatism. That's math. A woman called asking about her elderly mother who lives in an assisted care facility in the Whitmore district. She hasn't been able to reach her mother since morning, hasn't been able to get through to the facility staff. She wants to know if she should try to reach the facility, try to rescue her mother. I had to tell her that assisted care facilities were among the first places to be overwhelmed. High concentration of vulnerable people, limited security staff that abandoned post when the crisis began. The probability that her mother is still alive is very low. She started crying, asked what she's supposed to do, how she's supposed to just accept that her mother is dead without knowing for certain. I don't have an answer for that. There is no good answer. Death without confirmation, without closure, is one of the cruelest aspects of disasters. You're left in limbo, unable to grieve properly because some part of you still hopes, still believes survival is possible. But hope in those circumstances becomes torture. Every hour of uncertainty is another hour of suffering. Sometimes knowing for certain, even knowing the worst, is better than indefinite ambiguity. I didn't say that to her. Just told her I was sorry, told her to stay safe, told her to grieve however she needs to grieve. Then ended the call before she could ask me more questions I couldn't answer. This is the worst part of this job. Not the fear or the stress, but the helplessness. People call looking for hope and I have to give them honesty instead. They want reassurance, and I have to give them statistics. They want solutions and all I have are inadequate suggestions that might buy them a few more hours of life. I'm not helping. I'm just documenting, bearing witness to the death of a city and the people in it. Maybe that matters. Maybe having someone remember is important even if remembering doesn't change outcomes. But right now it feels empty. Feels like I'm playing a role in a performance no one is watching. The snow has stopped falling outside. The clouds are thinning, allowing some dim sunlight through. In that faint light I can see the city, see the empty streets, see the smoke rising from fires in multiple districts. It looks abandoned, looks like the aftermath of war, like we lost and everyone evacuated and all that remains is ruins. But we didn't evacuate. We're still here, hiding, scattered throughout the city in isolated pockets. Still alive, still human, still fighting in whatever small ways we can. That's worth something. The fact that people are still trying, still resisting, even when resistance seems futile. We haven't given up. We're still here. I wish Emily would call in, would let me know she's okay, that the fuel run was successful and she's on her way back. But there's only silence from her phone. Either she's too busy to call, or she's unable to call, or she's dead. Probably dead. I should prepare myself for that probability. Should start thinking about what I'll do when she doesn't return, how I'll manage the broadcast alone, how long I can keep going before exhaustion or despair overwhelms me. But I'm not ready to accept that yet. Still clinging to hope. Still believing she might succeed against terrible odds. Still lying to myself. It's 4:48 now. She's been gone almost an hour. The facility is maybe 20 minutes away on foot if you move carefully and avoid trouble. Another 20 minutes to secure fuel and return. So optimistically she could be back in 40 minutes total. She's already exceeded that time, which means either she encountered delays, took a longer route, or something went wrong. I'm watching the clock, watching minutes pass, watching the window of possible success close with each second. At some point I'll have to accept she's not coming back, have to move forward with that knowledge. Not yet. Not while there's still even a theoretical chance. The broadcast continues. I'm still at this microphone, still talking to whoever's listening out there, still pretending this matters, that my words serve some purpose beyond making me feel less alone. The emergency channels are chaotic. Multiple simultaneous transmissions, competing voices, fragments of information impossible to parse into coherent understanding. The communication infrastructure is collapsing along with everything else. Soon we won't even have radio, won't even have this primitive connection to what's happening beyond our immediate sight. Then it's just darkness and silence and isolation. Just waiting alone in the dark for whatever comes next. A family called claiming to be sheltering in a church basement with about 20 others. They're hearing sounds above them, footsteps on the main floor, things being knocked over. They think infected have entered the church. They're asking if they should stay hidden or try to escape. I told them to stay silent and stay hidden. Basements can be defendable if the entrance is secured. But if the infected know they're down there, if they're actively searching, then the basement becomes a trap. No good options. Again, just choices between different forms of danger. They're praying. I can hear them in the background, voices murmuring prayer, asking God for protection, for deliverance, for mercy. I respect that. If faith provides comfort in the final moments, that's valuable regardless of whether the prayers are answered. I don't know if God exists. I don't know if there's any divine plan or cosmic justice, but I know humans need meaning, need to believe their suffering serves some purpose. Prayer provides that meaning, gives people a framework for understanding catastrophe, easier than accepting random chaos, easier than acknowledging we're just biological machines, subject to chemical reactions and bad luck, easier to believe in testing or punishment or mysterious ways than to accept meaningless horror. I won't take that comfort from anyone, won't challenge their faith or point out the absence of intervention. If prayer helps them face death with dignity, then prayer is a gift. The call ended. They're still in the basement, still praying, still waiting. I'll probably never know what happened to them. Just another group of survivors who called looking for hope and got inadequate advice instead. This is all I can do. Take calls, provide suggestions, acknowledge the fear. It's not enough, but it's all I have. Emily has been gone for an hour and 15 minutes now. Well beyond any reasonable time frame for success. She's not coming back. She died trying to get fuel that we didn't desperately need, fuel that would have bought us a few more hours of broadcast time that probably doesn't matter to anyone. She died for nothing, for a meaningless gesture, because I let her go instead of stopping her. This is my fault. I should have refused. Should have locked the door and refused to let her leave. Should have found another solution. Ration power, more carefully accepted that the broadcast would fail eventually. But I didn't. I let her go. And now she's dead. I'm sitting at this microphone trying to maintain professional composure while processing grief and guilt and the knowledge that my decisions led directly to someone's death. Trying to keep broadcasting because that's what Emily would want. Because giving up now would make her sacrifice meaningless. But it already is meaningless. Nothing we're doing matters. The city is dying, the infection is spreading. A few more hours of broadcast won't change that, won't save anyone, won't make any difference at all. I should just shut down, should stop this pretense of usefulness and accept reality, should secure the building and wait for the end like everyone else. But I can't, because Emily believed this mattered. She died believing we were helping people. And if I stop now, if I abandon the broadcast she died trying to preserve, then her death becomes even more pointless than it already is. So I keep going, keep talking, keep pretending this serves a purpose. This is grief. This is what it feels like to lose someone you care about in a crisis. Not clean, not processed, just raw and immediate and overwhelming. And I have to function anyway. Have to keep performing my role because people are depending on this broadcast, even if I no longer believe it helps. The light outside is fading faster now. True darkness approaching. In an hour, maybe two, we'll be operating in complete night. The infected will own the streets completely then. Any survivors still outside will have no chance. Emily is out there somewhere in the growing darkness, dead or dying or infected. I'll never know which, never get closure or confirmation. Just the knowledge that she left and didn't return. This is how relationships end in apocalypse. Not with goodbyes or final words, but with people leaving and never coming back. With uncertainty and ambiguity and the slow realization that you'll never see them again. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm sorry I let you go. I'm sorry I couldn't think of a better solution. I'm sorry you believe this broadcast was worth dying for. I'm sorry. The clock shows 5:23. Almost 8 hours since the outbreak began. The city has been transformed completely in that time, from normal to chaos to death. And I've been sitting here the entire time talking to a microphone pretending my words matter. What have I actually accomplished? Have I saved anyone? Have I provided information that helps people make better decisions? Or have I just been broadcasting into a void talking to myself while the world ends around me? I don't know. I'll never know. There's no metric for measuring the value of a radio broadcast during apocalypse. But I keep going anyway, because stopping feels like surrender. Because Emily died to keep this running. Because somewhere out there someone might be listening and my voice might be the only human connection they have left. That has to be enough. That has to matter. Otherwise everything is meaningless and I can't accept that. Not yet. The generator is still running, still have fuel for a few more hours. After that we go dark, unless Emily somehow succeeded and is on her way back with more fuel. But she's not. She's dead. I need to accept that. When the generator fails, when the power goes out, I'll switch to battery backup. That gives maybe 6 to 8 hours more. Enough to broadcast through the night. Then in the morning, if I'm still alive, I'll reassess, figure out what comes next. But that's thinking too far ahead. Right now, I just need to focus on the next hour. The next minute, the next word, that's all survival is. Just continuing from one moment to the next, without thinking about all the moments ahead that you'll probably never reach. A man just called, claiming to have information about the infection source. Says he worked at the shipping yard, says he knows what was in that container, says people need to know the truth about what caused this. I'm listening, taking notes, recording the call. This might be important. This might explain what happened, how this started, whether it could have been prevented. He's saying the container came from overseas. Eastern Europe, he thinks, based on partial markings he saw, manifested as medical waste and chemical disposal from a pharmaceutical research facility. But the labels were wrong, didn't match standard hazmat classification. He flagged it as irregular, filed a report with his supervisor, was told to process it anyway, that challenging every irregular shipment would paralyze operations, that sometimes documentation gets misplaced or mislabeled in international transfers. So he processed it, signed off on the transfer to the dump facility, went home that night thinking nothing of it. Now he's calling from somewhere north of the city, watching news coverage, seeing what happened, realizing his signature, his authorization started this, that he's responsible for everything that followed. He's asking for forgiveness, asking if I think God will forgive him, asking if the families of the dead would forgive him if they knew he was the one who let it through. I don't know how to answer that. Forgiveness is personal, not something I can grant on behalf of others, and technically he didn't cause this. He followed procedures, did his job. The system failed, not him specifically. But he still feels responsible, still carries the weight of knowing his actions, however procedurally correct, contributed to catastrophe. I tell him that blame doesn't matter now. What happened happened. We can analyze responsibility later if there is a later. Right now, the only thing that matters is survival. He thanks me and hangs up. Another voice I'll never hear again. Another person carrying guilt that will probably consume them regardless of whether blame is justified. This is what crisis does. Creates cascades of guilt. Everyone who made small decisions that contributed to the disaster ends up feeling responsible even when no individual decision was wrong in isolation. It's the system that failed. The combination of factors, but individuals carry the psychological burden anyway. The shipping inspector who processed the container, the dump workers who burned it, the city officials who didn't properly regulate waste disposal, the meteorologists who didn't predict the wind patterns. All of them made choices that seemed reasonable at the time. All of them now live with the knowledge that different choices might have prevented this. But that knowledge is useless. Worse than useless, it's torture. You can't change the past. You can only carry the weight of it forward into an uncertain future. I'm doing it myself. Carrying the weight of letting Emily leave, of decisions that led to her death. It doesn't help, doesn't change anything. Just makes the present moment harder to endure. But we endure anyway, because what else can we do? It's 5:46 now. The darkness outside is nearly complete. Just a faint glow on the western horizon, last remnants of daylight fading into night. Soon it will be full dark and the city will belong entirely to the infected. I can hear sounds from outside now. Distant screaming maybe, or wind, or my imagination. Hard to distinguish through the building's walls and my own fatigue. How long have I been awake? Since early this morning before my regular shift began. Must be 18 hours, maybe 20. Operating on adrenaline and fear and too much coffee. Eventually exhaustion will overwhelm me, force me to sleep whether I want to or not. But not yet. Still have hours of fuel left, still have broadcast to maintain, still have a reason to stay awake. Emily would want me to keep going, so I keep going. The emergency channels are quieter now, fewer transmissions. Either communication equipment is failing, or people have stopped trying to coordinate, accepted that they're on their own, retreated into isolated survival mode. That's the death of collective action. When people stop trusting that help might come, stop believing that coordinated response is possible, they withdraw to individual self-preservation. And once that happens, once social cooperation breaks down completely, recovery becomes nearly impossible. We need each other to survive complex crises. Lone individuals can't maintain infrastructure, can't generate power or treat water or coordinate defense. We need organization, specialization, cooperation. But organization requires trust, requires belief that following the plan will lead to better outcomes than abandoning it. When that trust fails, when people decide they're better off alone, civilization collapses into scattered survivors who can't rebuild because they can't trust each other enough to cooperate. We're seeing that happen in real time. The breakdown of social structure, the retreat into isolated survival, the end of collective humanity and the beginning of something more primitive. Maybe that's inevitable. Maybe the veneer of civilization is thin and fragile, always just one crisis away from shattering completely. Maybe what we're seeing is the natural state of human society under extreme stress, stripped of the comfortable lies we tell ourselves about cooperation and progress. Or maybe I'm just exhausted and cynical and interpreting events through a lens of despair that isn't objective. Probably that. Exhaustion makes everything seem worse, makes hope feel like delusion and survival feel like mere delay of inevitable death. I need to be more careful about my mental state. Need to monitor for signs of breaking, of giving up, of letting grief and fatigue overwhelm rational thought. Because once I break, once I lose the ability to function, this broadcast ends and I lose the one thing keeping me anchored to purpose. So I monitor myself, check my thoughts for descent into nihilism, force myself to maintain perspective. Remember that despair is a symptom of exhaustion, not an objective assessment of reality. This is cognitive discipline in crisis, recognizing your own mental state and compensating for its distortions. Harder than it sounds when every external input confirms your worst fears, but necessary. Survival requires it. A woman called asking if there's any organized evacuation happening, any government rescue operations for civilians trapped in the containment zone. She has children, can't leave her apartment because infected are in the hallways, running low on supplies. I have to tell her no, there's no organized evacuation, no rescue operations. The military is barely holding the perimeter and losing ground constantly. Nobody is coming into the containment zone to extract civilians. She starts pleading, begs me to check again, to contact authorities to find someone who can help. Says her children are young, says they don't deserve this, says someone has to do something. I agree with all of that. Her children don't deserve this. Someone should help. But the reality is nobody can. The resources don't exist. The infrastructure has collapsed. The authorities themselves are in crisis mode. She's on her own. Everyone is on their own. That's the truth she doesn't want to accept but needs to hear. I tell her as gently as I can, tell her to ration supplies, keep children quiet, stay away from windows and doors, standard survival advice that might buy them a few more days. That's all I can offer. She's crying when she hangs up, crying because I confirmed her worst fears, because I couldn't give her the hope she desperately needed, because reality is crueler than anyone should have to face. I'm failing these people. Every call ends with disappointment, with people realizing I can't actually help them, that I'm just another voice confirming how bad things are. Maybe I should stop taking calls. Should just broadcast information without the personal interaction, without the emotional weight of individual stories. Would be easier, less painful. But people need human connection, need to hear another voice to know they're not completely alone. Even if I can't solve their problems, even if all I offer is acknowledgement and sympathy, that might matter, might be worth the emotional toll. So I keep taking calls, keep listening, keep bearing witness to individual suffering even when I can't alleviate it. This is what it means to maintain humanity during apocalypse. Not grand gestures or heroic actions, but small moments of connection, of recognition, of refusing to let people disappear unacknowledged. The clock shows 6:14. Full darkness now. Night has fallen. The city outside is invisible except where fires burn, creating islands of light in an ocean of black. Those fires worry me. Uncontrolled flames spreading through empty buildings. No firefighters responding, no suppression efforts. Just fuel burning freely until it exhausts or the buildings collapse. Fire can kill infected the same as it kills anything else. But it can also destroy the infrastructure survivors need, consume resources, create hazards that outlast the outbreak. We might contain the infection only to find the city uninhabitable due to fire damage. Assuming we contain the infection. Assuming there's anyone left to inhabit the city afterward. Assumptions that seem increasingly unlikely. I should eat something. Haven't eaten since morning. Must maintain basic physical functioning. But food seems irrelevant right now. Stomach is twisted with stress and grief. Nothing sounds appealing. Still, I force myself. Grab a protein bar from the emergency supplies Emily organized. Eat it mechanically without tasting. Fuel for the body even if the body doesn't want it. This is also survival. The unglamorous maintenance tasks. Eating, drinking water, using the bathroom. Basic biological functions that continue regardless of crisis. Strange how normal those things feel. How the body's needs persist even when the mind is consumed by fear and loss. We're still animals underneath all the civilization and culture. Still driven by base requirements that don't care about apocalypse. The generator hums steadily. Still working, still converting fuel into power. A reliable machine doing its job without complaint or fear. Wish I could be that reliable, that consistent. But I'm human. Subject to all the weaknesses that imply. Emily chose this. I need to remember that. She volunteered for the fuel run, made her own decision knowing the risks. I didn't force her, didn't manipulate her, just failed to stop her. That distinction matters. Makes the guilt slightly more bearable. Slightly, but she's still dead. And I'm still alone, and the broadcast continues regardless of what I feel about it. The emergency channels are transmitting something strange now. Coordinated broadcasts on multiple frequencies, all repeating the same message. It's a recorded announcement, not live communication, playing on loop. Emily left the equipment recording. I'm playing it back, listening to what might be one of the last official government communications to the containment zone. It's a message from FEMA, warning all civilians to seek shelter immediately and stay sheltered until further notice, advising that military operations are underway and civilians in affected areas may encounter armed personnel, instructing people to comply with all orders from uniformed personnel. And then at the end, this area has been designated for strategic containment measures. Civilian population is advised that resupply and rescue operations are suspended pending resolution of the crisis. Preserve resources. Maintain shelter. Await further instructions. Strategic containment measures. That phrase again. The euphemism Emily identified earlier, the code for whatever comes next when conventional response fails. They're not coming. Nobody is coming. The government has officially abandoned everyone inside the containment zone. We've been designated acceptable losses, written off, left to die while military resources protect everywhere else. This is what giving up looks like at institutional scale. Polite language and official pronouncements that mean you're on your own. Die quietly and don't cause problems for the people managing the crisis from safe distance. I should broadcast this message. Should let everyone know the truth about their situation. But what good does it do? What changes if people know they've been abandoned? Just creates despair. Just confirms what most people already suspected. The authorities aren't coming. Help isn't arriving. Whatever happens next, we face it alone. Maybe it's better not to know. Maybe maintaining hope, however false, helps people survive longer, gives them reason to ration supplies and maintain vigilance instead of giving up. But lying feels wrong. Withholding information feels like betrayal. People deserve truth even when truth is terrible. I'm going to broadcast the message, going to play the recording and let people hear it directly. Then they can decide for themselves how to respond. That's all I can do. Provide information and trust people to handle it however they need to. I'm switching the broadcast now, playing the FEMA recording, letting everyone hear what I heard. Then I'll come back and we'll continue. All right. The recording is played. You heard it. The official position of the federal government is that we're on our own. No rescue, no support, just containment and waiting. I'm not going to tell you how to feel about that. I'm not going to interpret or provide commentary. Just wanted you to hear it directly so you understand the situation clearly. What you do with that information is your choice. Give up or keep fighting. Surrender or survive. I can't make that decision for you, but I'm going to keep broadcasting as long as I can. Going to keep providing information and taking calls and maintaining this connection. Because even if no one is coming, even if we're abandoned, we're still here, still alive, still human, and that matters. Has to matter. Otherwise, none of this means anything. It's 6:41 now. 9 hours since this started, 9 hours of transformation from normal city to infected wasteland. 9 hours of death and fear and the collapse of everything we built. And somehow we're still here. Somehow some of us are still alive, still broadcasting, still fighting. That resilience is remarkable. Maybe the most remarkable thing about humans, our ability to endure impossible circumstances and keep going anyway. I want to believe that matters. Want to believe that survival itself is meaningful even without larger purpose, that living another day, another hour, another minute is an achievement worth celebrating. But right now it just feels like delay, like we're postponing inevitable death while pretending it means something. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel differently. Maybe after sleep, after processing the grief, after some distance from today's events, I'll find perspective that makes survival feel worthwhile again. Or maybe this is how it ends. With exhaustion and cynicism and the slow realization that fighting is pointless. I don't know. Don't have answers. Just questions and fear and the weight of being alone in a building broadcasting to an audience that might not exist anymore. But I keep talking anyway. Keep performing the ritual of radio broadcasting like it matters. Like my voice reaching into darkness serves some purpose beyond making me feel less alone. A man called 2 minutes ago, didn't say much. Just thank you for still being there and hung up. That's it. That's all. But it helped. Knowing someone is listening, knowing this broadcast reaches at least one other person, knowing I'm not just talking to myself in an empty building, that's enough? For now, that's enough to keep going. The snow is starting again outside, light flakes drifting past the window, visible only when they cross the light spillage from the building. The temperature must be dropping, going to be a cold night for anyone without heat. The infected don't care about cold, don't seek warmth or shelter, just keep moving regardless of weather. But survivors need heat, need protection from elements. Winter weather kills just as effectively as infection, just slower. How many people will freeze tonight? How many will burn their last fuel trying to stay warm, then die when fuel runs out? How many will face the choice between freezing in silence or making noise to generate heat and attracting infected? All terrible choices. All variations on the theme of suffering and death that defines this crisis. I'm watching the fuel gauge on the generator. It's lower than I'd like. Maybe 10 hours remaining at current draw. Then battery backup. Then nothing. Emily didn't come back. She's not coming back. I know that now. Have accepted it as fully as I can while still functioning. She died trying to extend our broadcast time and failed. And soon the broadcast will fail anyway because there's no fuel and no way to get more without repeating her fatal mistake. So this broadcast has maybe 16 hours left. Until late morning tomorrow if I'm conservative with power. Then silent. I'm going to stay here until the end. Going to broadcast until the power fails and I can't broadcast anymore. Then I'll have to decide what comes next. Whether to stay in this building or try to reach somewhere else. Whether to keep trying to survive or accept that survival is temporary regardless of effort. But that decision is hours away. Right now I just need to focus on continuing. On maintaining the broadcast. On being here for anyone who's listening. One moment at a time. That's all I can manage. One moment, then the next, then the next. This is Daniel Rothman on 104.7 FM. Still broadcasting. Still here. Still alive. For however long that lasts. The clock shows 7:03. The night is fully established now. The darkness outside is complete except for the scattered fires still burning in various districts. Those fires cast orange glows that pulse and flicker against the low clouds, creating an eerie illumination that makes the city look like it's already hell. I've been monitoring Emily's equipment while maintaining the broadcast. The emergency channels have gone almost completely silent. Occasional burst of static fragments of transmission too degraded to understand, but no coherent communication. The network has failed. Whatever coordination existed earlier has collapsed into individual survival efforts with no central organization. We're past the point of structured response, past the point where authority and hierarchy mean anything. Now it's just isolated groups and individuals making desperate choices with no guidance or support. A family called 10 minutes ago. 5 people sheltering in a suburban home about 8 miles from here. They've heard infected in neighboring houses breaking windows, searching systematically through the neighborhood. They're asking how long until the infected move on, whether they should try to flee while there's still time. I don't have good answers. The infected don't seem to move on. They search until they find something or until stimulus draws them elsewhere. Waiting them out might work, but might not. Fleeing guarantees exposure to whatever dangers exist outside. I told them to stay dark and quiet, turn off all lights, silence all devices, avoid any sound or activity that might draw attention. If the infected are searching neighboring houses, eventual discovery is likely but not guaranteed. Some hiding spots go unnoticed. Some people survive through pure luck. That's what survival has become. Not skill or preparation, but random chance. Whether the infected happen to check your particular hiding spot, whether you happen to be somewhere they didn't search, whether luck favors you for no particular reason. You can improve your odds with smart decisions, but fundamentally you're at the mercy of factors beyond your control, and accepting that powerlessness is terrifying. The family thanked me and ended the call. I'll never know what happened to them. They're just another group of survivors whose fate I can't influence and can't know. This is the essential loneliness of crisis. We're all facing the same threat, but we're facing it separately in isolation without real connection or support. The broadcast provides illusion of connection, but it's one-way, impersonal, insufficient. Emily was my last real human connection, the last person I could talk to, share fears with, coordinate with. Now she's gone and I'm talking to a microphone, performing for an audience I can't see or verify exists. It's strange how much difference one person makes, how having just one other human present changes everything. Makes fear more bearable, makes decisions feel less overwhelming, makes the waiting less lonely. Without Emily, this building feels enormous and empty. The silence between broadcasts is oppressive. My own thoughts spiral into dark places without another voice to interrupt them. I understand now why solitary confinement is considered torture. Humans aren't built for isolation. We need social contact, need interaction, need the presence of others even when we're not actively communicating. Just knowing someone else is there makes existence more tolerable. And now I'm alone, completely alone, possibly one of the last people left alive in this entire region, though that seems unlikely. Others must be surviving somewhere, hidden in bunkers or fortified buildings or remote locations the infection hasn't reached. But I'm alone in my immediate sphere, and that loneliness is crushing in ways I didn't anticipate. I'm checking the building perimeter again, walking through the halls, verifying all entry points are secure, looking for any signs of intrusion. It's become a ritual now, something to do when the silence gets too heavy. Movement instead of sitting frozen at the broadcast desk. Everything is secure, doors are locked and barricaded, windows are intact, no signs that anything has tried to enter the building. We're still safe here, for whatever that's worth. The building has its own backup systems, multiple redundancies because radio stations can't afford to go offline during emergencies, but those systems assume external support exists. The heating system is automated, running off the same power supply as the broadcast equipment. As long as the generator holds out, we maintain climate control. But I can feel the temperature dropping despite the system's efforts. The cold is seeping in through the walls, through gaps around windows, through the fundamental inadequacy of any building to fully exclude winter. When the power fails, when the generator runs dry, the heat will fade quickly. This building will become as cold as the outside air within hours. Then I'll have the choice of freezing or burning something for warmth and risking smoke that might draw attention. More impossible choices, more variations on the theme of survival through least bad options. I'm back at the broadcast desk now, 7:28. The coffee Emily made hours ago has gone cold in the pot. I pour another cup anyway, drink it despite the bitterness. Caffeine to keep me functional. Warmth, however temporary, against the encroaching cold. The snow outside has intensified. I can see it in the light from the window, thick flakes falling steadily, accumulating on the streets and abandoned vehicles. Must be 3 or 4 inches now, maybe more. The city is being buried under white while it dies. There's something almost peaceful about the snow. The way it muffles sound, softens edges, creates a blanket of quiet over everything. In other circumstances, it would be beautiful. Right now, it just feels like nature covering the evidence, hiding the horror under a pristine layer that will melt come spring and reveal all the death beneath. If there's anyone left to see it by spring, if the infection doesn't spread beyond this region and consume everything, if humanity survives at all. Too many ifs, too much uncertainty. I need to focus on immediate concerns on the next hour rather than the next season. A woman called asking about her husband who was caught outside when the outbreak started. He was commuting home from work, got stuck in the traffic on Route 74. She hasn't heard from him since his last text around 9:30 this morning saying he felt dizzy and was getting out of the car. I had to tell her the truth. Anyone caught in that initial exposure on the highway, anyone who felt symptoms that early, is almost certainly infected now or dead. The Route 74 corridor was ground zero. The concentration of contaminated smoke was highest there. The infection rate was near total. Her husband is gone. She needs to accept that and focus on her own survival. She didn't want to accept it. Kept insisting he might have escaped, might be somewhere safe, might be trying to reach home. Kept creating scenarios where survival was possible. I understand that impulse. The mind rejects information it can't process, constructs alternatives that feel more tolerable even when evidence contradicts them. Grief and shock create cognitive dissonance that manifests as denial. But denial doesn't change reality. Her husband is gone. Believing otherwise just postpones inevitable acceptance and might lead her to make dangerous choices based on false hope. I tried to be gentle but firm, acknowledged her pain but insisted on truth, told her to grieve but also to survive, to honor her husband's memory by staying alive. She hung up crying. I don't know if I helped or made things worse. Don't know if harsh truth is better than comforting lies in these circumstances. Just doing my best with impossible situations and hoping I'm causing less harm than good. The emergency broadcast system is activated on multiple channels. That's the automated alert system that triggers during major disasters. It's playing the standard emergency tone followed by text-to-speech announcements, warning people to shelter in place and avoid contact with infected individuals. The messages are repetitive and generic, clearly computer-generated rather than human-created, which means the people who normally manage emergency communications are no longer at their posts. The system is running on automation, broadcasting pre-programmed messages without human oversight. That's another sign of complete collapse. When the warning systems become automated, When no one is left to provide real-time updates or specific guidance, the institutional response has failed entirely. We're being warned by machines because the people who should warn us are dead or fled or overwhelmed. I'm keeping my broadcast separate from the automated alerts, still providing live human communication for anyone who wants something beyond computer-generated warnings, still taking calls and responding in real time. That distinction matters. Humans need human connection during crisis, need to hear actual voices expressing actual thoughts rather than programmed responses. The automated systems serve a purpose, but they can't replace genuine human interaction. As long as I'm able to broadcast, I'll continue providing that interaction. It's the one thing I can offer that automation can't replicate. The clock shows 7:51. I've been at this for over 10 hours now with only brief breaks. Exhaustion is becoming a serious issue. My thoughts are slower, less organized. I'm making more verbal mistakes, struggling to maintain coherent sentences. I should sleep, should rest while I can. But sleep means stopping the broadcast, means abandoning anyone listening, means giving up the one task keeping me anchored to purpose. So, I push through. Drink more cold coffee. Force my mind to focus. Keep talking despite the fatigue. This can't continue indefinitely. Eventually my body will shut down regardless of will or determination, but not yet. I can keep going for a while longer. Have to. For Emily, for the people listening, for the meaning I've assigned to this broadcast that makes survival feel worthwhile. A man called claiming to see lights in the sky, described them as green and pulsing, moving in patterns that seemed intelligent rather than random. Asked if I'd heard any reports of aerial activity, if there might be rescue operations beginning. I haven't seen or heard anything about aircraft activity. The airport was compromised hours ago. Military air operations would be focused on the perimeter, not the interior of the containment zone. And green pulsing lights don't match any normal aircraft identification markers. I told him he was probably seeing reflection of ground fires off the cloud layer, or aurora borealis, which sometimes appears this time of year, or optical illusions caused by stress and fear. The mind creates patterns where none exist, especially under extreme duress. He insisted he knew what he saw, that these were definitely craft of some kind, that someone was flying over the city. Got angry when I suggested alternative explanation. I ended the call as politely as possible. No point arguing with someone who's determined to believe something regardless of evidence. And maybe he's right, maybe there are aircraft I don't know about. I can't see everything from this building, but probably he's seeing things that aren't there. Stress-induced hallucinations or misinterpretation of natural phenomena. The mind under pressure creates false perceptions, sees meaning in randomness, constructs hope from ambiguous stimuli. We all do it to some degree. I'm probably doing it right now, assigning importance to this broadcast that doesn't actually exist, creating purpose where there's only meaningless routine. But the alternative is accepting that nothing matters, that all action is futile, that survival itself has no value. And I can't accept that. Not yet. The snow continues falling outside. The street is completely white now, all the pavement covered, all the details obscured. The abandoned vehicles look like abstract sculptures, organic shapes emerging from the snow rather than human-made objects. In the morning, if I'm still alive, if I'm still here, that snow will be marked with footprints. Infected moving through the streets, searching, hunting, leaving trails that show their patterns of movement. Or maybe not. Maybe the infected don't move in snow. Maybe cold affects them in ways we don't understand. Maybe winter will slow the outbreak, provide survivors with seasonal advantage. Or maybe I'm just hoping for something positive, some factor that improves our chances, however slightly. Grasping at possibilities because the confirmed facts are all terrible. I need to be more rigorous about distinguishing between evidence and speculation. My exhaustion is making that boundary fuzzy. I'm stating possibilities as if they're facts, confusing hope with analysis. This is a failure of cognitive discipline. I need to be more careful. People listening deserve accurate information, not my exhausted speculation presented as truth. So let me be clear. I don't know how the infected will behave in snow or cold. Don't have evidence one way or another. Any claims about weather effects on the outbreak are speculation until confirmed by observation. That's the standard I need to maintain. Acknowledge what I know, acknowledge what I don't know, never conflate the two. Emily would hold me to that standard. She was good at fact-checking, at distinguishing between verified information and rumor, unless disciplined without her oversight. Another reason her loss hurts beyond the personal. She made me better at this job, made the broadcast more reliable, and now I'm alone and declining in quality with each passing hour. The fuel gauge on the generator shows roughly 9 hours remaining. That takes us to around 5 in the morning if my estimate is correct, then battery backup for another 6 to 8 hours. So the broadcast could continue until early afternoon tomorrow. After that, silence. Unless some miracle occurs, unless fuel appears somehow, this station will go permanently offline tomorrow afternoon. I should use the remaining time productively. Should organize information, create some kind of record that might survive even after the broadcast ends. But I'm too tired to think about documentation. Just maintaining real-time broadcast takes all my remaining energy. Tomorrow? I'll think about legacy and records tomorrow if tomorrow comes. Right now I just keep talking. Keep the signal alive. Keep being here for anyone listening. A family called from somewhere in the industrial district. They're sheltering in a factory building. About 15 people total. Mix of workers who were there when the outbreak started and neighbors who fled to the facility seeking security. They've fortified their position, blocked entrances, established watch rotations, inventoried supplies. They're organized, disciplined, doing everything right. But they're running low on food and water. Maybe 3 days of supplies remaining if they ration carefully. They're asking if there's any information about supply drops, about relief operations, about anything that might help them resupply without leaving their secure location. I have to tell them no supply drops, no relief operations, no support coming from outside. They're entirely dependent on what they have and what they can scavenge from their immediate area. The factory building might have vending machines, break room supplies, things that could extend their timeline. But eventually they'll exhaust those resources. Then they'll face the choice of starving in security or risking exposure to seek more supplies. I gave them what advice I could. Ration more aggressively than they think necessary. Collect any water source available, including radiators and toilet tanks, if those haven't been contaminated. Look for protein sources, even if unconventional. Prepare psychologically for hard decisions ahead. It's inadequate advice, doesn't solve their fundamental problem, just delays the inevitable crisis. But delay is all anyone can hope for right now. Each day survived is an achievement. Each hour is a victory against impossible odds. The family thanked me and ended the call. They sound competent, organized, more prepared than most. If anyone has a chance of long-term survival, it's groups like them. But even the best prepared groups will struggle as supplies dwindle and isolation extends. How long can people maintain social cohesion under extreme stress? How long before groups fracture into competing factions, before cooperation breaks down into conflict over dwindling resources? History suggests not long. Disasters initially bring people together, but prolonged crisis strains every social bond. Eventually, self-preservation overcomes cooperation. Eventually, the group fragments into individuals fighting for their own survival. And individual survivors don't last long. Humans need cooperation to thrive, need specialization and mutual support. Alone, we're weak, vulnerable, incapable of maintaining the complex systems that sustain modern life. So we're trapped between two failures: groups that inevitably fracture under stress, and individuals who can't survive alone. No winning configuration, just different timelines to the same endpoint. Maybe that's too cynical. Maybe some groups will maintain cohesion. Maybe some individuals will prove more capable than I'm assuming. Maybe human resilience exceeds my exhausted estimates. I want to believe that. I want to believe survival is possible, that people will endure, that humanity continues beyond this crisis. But belief and evidence are diverging, and I trust evidence more than I trust hope. The emergency channels are transmitting something new now, not the automated warnings, but actual voice traffic. Military communications, sounds like. Encrypted, heavily coded, but definitely human voices rather than computer-generated speech. I can't decode what they're saying. The encryption is sophisticated, the terminology specialized, but the mere presence of organized military communications suggests command structure still exists somewhere. That institutional response hasn't collapsed completely. That's something. Not much, but something. Means the authorities outside the containment zone are still functional, still coordinating, still attempting to manage the crisis, even if management means containment rather than rescue. For us inside the zone, it doesn't change anything. We're still abandoned, still written off, still facing death without external support. But knowing the broader infrastructure survives provides minimal comfort. Civilization hasn't ended everywhere. Just here. Just us. Small comfort, but I'll take it. The clock shows 8:37. Almost 11 hours of broadcasting. My voice is rough now, throat raw from constant talking. I've been drinking water periodically, but it's not enough to offset the strain. I'm going to sound progressively worse as this continues. voice deteriorating into hoarse croaking, but the content matters more than the delivery. As long as words remain intelligible, I keep going. Emily used to joke about my radio voice, the slightly deeper tone I unconsciously adopted when broadcasting. Said it made me sound more authoritative than I actually was. She'd imitate it sometimes, making me laugh at my own affectation. I miss her laugh, miss her presence, miss having someone who knew me well enough to mock me affectionately. Grief keeps hitting in waves. I'll be functional for a while, focused on tasks and information, then something triggers memory and the loss becomes overwhelming again. Have to breathe through it. Have to let the wave pass without drowning in it. This is what grief during crisis looks like. No time to properly process, no space to mourn appropriately. Just periodic overwhelm interrupting necessary function. I'll grieve properly later. If there is a later, if I survive long enough to have time for emotional processing. Right now I compartmentalize, push the feelings down, focus on immediate tasks, deal with emotions after the emergency ends. Except the emergency won't end. This is permanent now. This is just how things are. So I'm postponing grief indefinitely, waiting for stability that will never return. Eventually that postponement will break me. Eventually the accumulated emotional weight will exceed my capacity to contain it and I'll collapse psychologically. But not yet, not while I'm needed, not while the broadcast continues. After, I'll fall apart after. When there's no one depending on this signal, when survival becomes personal rather than public, then I can afford to break. Until then, I hold together through will and necessity. A man called asking if I'd heard anything about international response, whether other countries are sending aid, whether the infection has spread beyond national borders, whether global resources are being mobilized to address the crisis. I haven't heard anything about international involvement. The communications I'm monitoring are all domestic. If international response is happening, it's at levels I don't have access to. But logically, other nations would be watching this situation carefully. An infection that spreads this rapidly, that resists conventional containment, that threatens to consume entire populations, that would concern every government on Earth. They're probably implementing their own containment measures, closing borders, restricting travel, preparing for the possibility that infection reaches their territories. Some might offer assistance, but most are probably focused on preventing spread to their own population. We're a cautionary tale now, a demonstration of what happens when response fails. Other countries will learn from our mistakes, will implement harsher measures earlier, will prioritize prevention over humanitarian concern, and will die here while they watch and take notes. That sounds bitter. Maybe it is bitter, but it's probably also accurate. Nations prioritize self-preservation. They'll help if helping doesn't risk their own populations. But when help means exposure to catastrophic infection, they'll let us die to protect themselves. I can't blame them for that calculus. It's rational. It's the right decision from their perspective. Better to lose one nation than lose all of them. Cold comfort for those of us on the wrong side of that equation. The man on the phone seemed disappointed by my answer. Wanted to believe international cavalry was coming to save us. Wanted to believe we mattered enough for global intervention. We don't. We're acceptable losses in the larger fight against the infection. Written off, abandoned, left to die while the rest of the world builds walls to keep us and our contamination isolated. I ended the call and moved on to the next. This is what I do now. Destroy hope. Confirm worst fears. Serve reality regardless of how cruel reality is. Not the role I wanted, but the role circumstances demand. The snow has stopped falling outside. The clouds are thinning, allowing moonlight through in patches. In that pale light, I can see the city more clearly. See the streets buried under white. See the buildings standing silent and dark. See the smoke still rising from fires in the distance. It looks abandoned. Looks like everyone left years ago. And nature is reclaiming human spaces. But I know better. I know the streets are full of infected. No survivors are hiding throughout the city. Know that beneath the peaceful appearance is ongoing horror. Appearances lie. The snow makes everything look clean and quiet and safe, but walking those streets means death. The infection doesn't care about aesthetics. I'm watching the fuel gauge obsessively now, watching the needle drop gradually toward empty. Each hour brings us closer to the end of broadcast capability. Each hour is borrowed time. 8 hours of generator fuel remaining, then battery backup, then silent. I need to make these hours count. Need to provide maximum value with the time remaining. But I don't know what maximum value looks like. Just continuing to broadcast, just being here, is that enough? Or should I be doing something different, something more significant with these final hours? I don't know. Too tired to think strategically. Just maintaining baseline function takes all my remaining capacity. So I continue as I have been, taking calls, sharing information, maintaining human connection through the broadcast. It's all I know how to do. Hope it's enough. A woman called asking about children. Whether infected children behave differently than infected adults. Whether they might be less dangerous or more susceptible to reasoning. I don't have specific information about infected children. Haven't seen reports distinguishing between age groups. The infection seems to affect everyone similarly regardless of age. But the question reveals her situation. She's somewhere with children, possibly her own, possibly others she's trying to protect. And she's looking for any reason to believe those children might be savable if they're infected. They're not. The infection doesn't discriminate. Doesn't spare children because they're young or innocent. A child infected is just as dangerous as an adult infected, maybe more dangerous because people hesitate to defend themselves against children even when those children are trying to kill them. I had to tell her that, had to destroy whatever hope she was constructing about saving infected children, because that hope could get her killed, could make her hesitate at a critical moment, could lead to more infection. She started crying. Asked how she's supposed to survive in a world where children become monsters. Asked what kind of universe allows that. I don't have answers to those questions. The universe is indifferent to our sense of justice or fairness. Bad things happen to innocent people, including children. That's just reality. But I didn't say that to her. Just offered inadequate sympathy and ended the call. Some questions don't have answers that help. The temperature in the building is dropping despite the heating system. I can feel it in my fingers in the air I'm breathing. The cold is winning despite our technological efforts to exclude it. When the generator fails, when heating stops, this building will become uninhabitable quickly. I'll need to find alternative shelter or find ways to stay warm without power. More problems for future me to solve. Right now, I just note the temperature drop and keep broadcasting. The clock shows 9:43. Almost 12 hours since this began. 12 hours of continuous crisis, of society collapsing, of people dying, and we're nowhere near the end. This will continue for days, weeks, possibly months. How long does an outbreak like this last? How long before the infection burns through available hosts and has no one left to infect? How long before survivors die of starvation or exposure or violence, leaving only infected and empty buildings? I don't know. The mathematics of epidemic spread don't account for zombies, for infected that don't die from the disease itself, that persist indefinitely as vectors. Traditional models assume infections that eventually resolve either through host recovery or host death. But if infected don't die, if they persist as ambulatory transmission vectors, then the infection could theoretically continue forever. Each infected individual remains dangerous indefinitely. Even if transmission slows, even if new infections become rare, the existing infected population remains as permanent hazard. That's the nightmare scenario. Not that everyone dies, but that the infected never die. That they remain as permanent features of the landscape, making the world perpetually dangerous for any survivors. Humanity reduced to scattered individuals hiding from immortal predators. Civilization permanently collapsed. Technology reverting to primitive levels because we can't maintain complex systems while under constant threat. That's the future we're facing if this infection can't be stopped. Not quick death, but permanent regression to survival mode. Maybe that's better than extinction. Maybe some survival, however degraded, is better than complete human extinction. But right now, exhausted and grieving and alone, it's hard to see how that kind of survival is worth the cost. I'm spiraling into dark thoughts again. Need to pull back. Need to focus on immediate rather than speculating about dystopian futures. 1 hour at a time. That's all I can manage. Stop thinking about weeks or months or years, just the next hour. The emergency channels are transmitting more military communications. Still encrypted, but the volume has increased. Suggests significant activity, coordinated operations happening somewhere. I wish I could decode them. Wish I knew what's being planned, what strategies are being implemented, whether anyone has a solution or we're just documenting collapse. But the encryption is solid. I'm not getting through it with the equipment available here. So I just listen to the coded traffic and imagine what it might mean. Probably nothing good. Probably escalation of containment measures, discussion of strategic options that involve killing millions to save billions, cold equations being solved by people who can afford to be clinical because they're not inside the containment zone. Easy to make hard choices when you're safe. Easy to sacrifice others when you're not among those being sacrificed. But I'd probably make the same choices in their position. would probably authorize whatever measures necessary to prevent global spread, would probably write off the contaminated zone as acceptable loss. Understanding doesn't make it hurt less, doesn't make abandonment feel less like betrayal. But I understand the logic, and understanding is all I can do from here. A family called asking whether they should fortify their current location or attempt to reach a more secure building. They're in a residential home, suburban area, limited supplies. They know of a police station about a mile away that might have better defenses and more resources. I asked about the route between their location and the police station. Mostly residential streets, some open areas, passing several intersections where infected might be concentrated. They'd have to move the entire family, including 2 young children. High risk, unknown reward. The police station might be secure or might be overrun, might have supplies or might be picked clean. No way to know without going there. I told them to stay put unless their current location is actively compromised. Movement means exposure. Exposure means infection. Better to fortify what they have than risk everything on uncertain improvement. They seemed relieved, wanted permission to stay, wanted external validation of their instinct to avoid the risk. I provided that permission. Whether it's right advice, I don't know. Maybe the police station would have been better. Maybe I just condemned them to death in an inadequately fortified home. But they asked, and I answered based on my best judgment. That's all I can do. Give the advice that seems most likely to help and accept that I might be wrong. This is the weight of assumed authority. People trust my judgment because I'm broadcasting, because I seem to have information they lack. But I'm just guessing like everyone else. Just making decisions with incomplete information and hoping they're correct. The responsibility is crushing. Every piece of advice might get someone killed. Every suggestion carries life or death implications. I want to tell people I don't actually know, that they shouldn't trust my judgment, that I'm just scared and tired and doing my best. But that would undermine the one thing I can offer them, confidence. The appearance of knowledge even when knowledge doesn't exist. So I maintain the facade. Speak with authority I don't feel, pretend expertise I don't possess, because people need someone to seem like they know what's happening even when no one does. Emily saw through the facade, knew I was as lost as everyone else, but she never called me on it because she understood the necessity of pretense, understood that maintaining confidence helps people more than acknowledging doubt. I miss having someone who knew the truth, who understood that behind the radio voice and authoritative tone was just a person scared and uncertain and making it up as I went. Now everyone hears the performance. No one sees the person underneath. I'm alone with my doubts while projecting certainty to everyone listening. It's isolating in a different way than physical isolation, emotional isolation, performing a role that prevents authentic connection. But necessary. The broadcast requires it, people require it, so I perform. The clock shows 10:17. Fuel gauge shows 7 hours remaining. Then battery backup. Then nothing. The end is approaching. The broadcast won't survive tomorrow afternoon. Emily died for nothing. Her attempt to extend our runtime failed, and soon the station goes silent regardless. I need to accept that, need to prepare for what comes after the broadcast ends, but I can't think that far ahead, can't process beyond the immediate need to continue while continuation is possible. Tomorrow, I'll think about tomorrow when tomorrow arrives. A man called claiming to have information about a cure, said he worked in pharmaceutical research, said the infection is treatable if caught early, said proper antiviral protocols could reverse the transformation. I asked for specifics, chemical names, treatment protocols, evidence that this works. He became vague, said the details were proprietary, said he couldn't share specifics over unsecured channels, said people needed to trust him. I pushed harder, asked where he's located, how he knows this information, why he's calling a radio station instead of coordinating with medical authority. He got defensive, accused me of suppressing hope, of being part of the cover-up, of working with the government to keep the cure secret, then hung up. False hope. Desperate invention. Someone creating meaning by imagining they have crucial information when really they're just scared and grasping for control. I understand the impulse. Want to believe I have special knowledge that matters. Want to feel important and relevant instead of powerless and useless. So I create narratives where I'm the hero with critical information. But broadcasting false hope helps no one. Gets people killed when they trust non-existent cures instead of taking actual survival precautions. I won't spread that kind of misinformation. Won't give people false comfort that undermines their survival instincts. Reality is harsh but real. Fantasy is comforting but fatal. So I stick to verified information even when verification is impossible and information is minimal. Better to acknowledge uncertainty than to fill gaps with inventions. The snow is melting slightly despite the cold, water dripping from building edges, creating icicles that catch the moonlight. Beautiful in a way. Nature continuing its patterns regardless of human catastrophe. I'm watching those icicles form and thinking about persistence, about how water freezes and melts and freezes again in endless cycles, how nature doesn't give up or lose hope, just continues following physical laws without concern for outcomes. Maybe that's what survival looks like, not hope or purpose, but simple persistence. Following the patterns that keep you alive without needing them to mean anything. Eat when hungry, drink when thirsty, sleep when exhausted, seek warmth when cold. Basic biological imperatives that continue regardless of circumstance. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe survival doesn't require meaning or hope or purpose, just requires continuing the biological processes that define life. That's almost comforting. Reduces survival to simple maintenance. No grand meaning required, just persistent. Emily would challenge that, would insist that meaning matters, that humans need purpose beyond mere biological function, would argue that survival without meaning is just extended dying. She's not here to make that argument. So I'm left with my own thoughts spiraling between nihilism and desperate meaning-making. Neither extreme is useful. Neither helps me survive or maintain the broadcast. Just mental noise distracting from necessary tasks. I need to be more disciplined. Need to silence the philosophical spiraling and focus on immediate practical concerns. But exhaustion makes discipline difficult. Makes every thought feel profound even when it's just noise. Makes simple tasks feel overwhelming. I should sleep. Even a few hours would help, would restore some cognitive function, reduce the risk of critical mistake, but sleeping means stopping the broadcast, means abandoning my post, means letting Emily's death become even more meaningless. So I stay awake, push through. Accept declining function as the price of continuing. A woman called asking whether she should tell her children what's happening. They're young, sheltered in their home, aware something is wrong but not understanding the full scope. She wants to know if honesty is better than protecting their innocence. I don't have children. Don't know the right answer to that question. Protecting innocence seems kind but dishonest. Being honest seems cruel but respectful. I told her it depends on the children's ages and temperaments. That she knows them better than I do. That she should trust her parental instincts about what they can handle. Non-answer. Avoidance of responsibility for making that decision. But I genuinely don't know the right choice. Don't have the expertise or experience to advise on parenting during apocalypse. She seemed disappointed. Wanted clear guidance. Wanted me to make the decision for her so she wouldn't carry the weight of choosing wrong. But I can't do that. Can't take responsibility for how she raises her children during the worst crisis imaginable. That's her burden as a parent. So I deferred. Gave her permission to decide without prescribing what to decide. Hope that's helpful rather than cowardly. The clock shows 11:04. 13 hours of broadcasting, 13 hours of continuous crisis management, 13 hours of being the voice in the darkness for anyone listening. I'm starting to lose track of what I've said, starting to repeat information or contradict earlier statements. Memory is failing along with other cognitive functions. I should be taking notes. Should be documenting what I've broadcast to prevent redundancy. But organizing that kind of record requires energy I don't have. So I just continue. Repeat information if necessary. Accept that broadcast quality is declining as exhaustion intensifies. People listening probably notice, probably hear me getting worse. But they're not calling to complain, so either they don't care or they're too focused on their own survival to notice. Either way, I keep going until I physically can't anymore. The emergency channels are broadcasting automated evacuation orders now, instructing people to proceed to designated rally points for organized evacuation from the containment zone. It's obviously false. No evacuation is happening. The perimeter is sealed. This is either old messaging from before the containment was established or it's deliberate misinformation to draw people out of hiding. I'm announcing that it's false. Warning people not to respond to evacuation orders. Staying hidden is safer than attempting to reach rally points that don't exist or that have been compromised. This is the danger of automated systems. They keep broadcasting outdated information without human oversight to update or cancel messages, creating dangerous confusion that could get people killed. I have to actively counter the false messaging, have to be louder and clearer than the automated systems, have to make sure people trust my live human voice over computer-generated instructions. It's exhausting. Competing with automation while running on fumes, but necessary. A group called from inside one of the designated rally points, mentioned in the evacuation orders. A high school gymnasium where automated messages directed people to gather. About 40 people responded to the messages and congregated there. Now infected have surrounded the building. The group is trapped inside with limited supplies and no escape route. They're asking what to do. I don't know what to tell them. They're already in the trap. Already made the fatal mistake of trusting the automated evacuation orders. Now they're contained in a single location that infected can systematically assault. Their options are terrible. Try to break through the infected surrounding them, which almost certainly means casualties. Or stay trapped and hope rescue comes, which it won't. I gave them what tactical advice I could. Identify alternate exits. Prepare barricades. Organize defense in layers. Make noise to draw infected to one side while attempting escape from another. Long shot strategies with minimal chance of success, but better than passive waiting for inevitable death. They thanked me and ended the call. I'll never know if any of them survived. Just another group of people I couldn't help adequately, couldn't save, couldn't do anything for, except offer doomed advice. This is hell. Not the dramatic hell of flames and torture, but the quiet hell of helplessness, of watching people die and being unable to prevent it, of bearing witness to suffering I can't alleviate. I'm starting to understand why emergency responders burn out, why doctors and nurses and social workers leave their professions. The accumulated weight of cases you can't solve, people you can't help, suffering you can't prevent. It crushes you gradually. I've experienced one day of this and I'm already breaking. People who do this work for years, for careers I don't understand how they maintain function. Probably they develop emotional walls. Probably they learn to care less, to detach, to protect themselves from the weight of constant exposure to unsolvable problems. I haven't learned that skill, haven't had time to develop those defenses, so every call hits full force. Every story of suffering penetrates without buffer. It's destroying me, and there's still so many hours left, so much more suffering to witness before the broadcast ends. I don't know if I can endure it, don't know if my psychological structure can withstand the accumulated trauma of this continuous exposure. But I keep taking calls, keep listening, keep bearing witness even as it breaks me, because what else can I do? The fuel gauge shows 6 hours remaining. The night continues. The city dies around me while I sit in this building talking to a microphone. This is my contribution. This is how I fight. With words and witness and the pretense of knowledge, it feels inadequate. Feels like nothing compared to the scale of catastrophe. But it's all I have, so I give it. Give everything I have left, until there's nothing more to give. Then I suppose I'll find out what comes after, what happens when purpose ends and survival becomes purely personal. But that's hours away still. For now I broadcast. For now I continue. This is Daniel Rothman on One. Still here. Still alive. Still trying.